Good evening, everybody. The time is now 7:02. Officially call the regular meeting, public hearing open for the Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals on Tuesday, June 25th, here at the Old Town Hall. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next thing we need to do is to confirm the next meeting date, which according to our calendar would be Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024. Just want to make sure that that works for any board members or any cases that we have tonight that will be able to make that meeting should they need to attend. Just in the event we have to continue the public hearing, we want to make sure that date would work, that's all. Board members, what he's looking, does that work for you guys? Okay.
Louis Svensson works for me.
Okay. John, you on there? No?
Mr. Chairman, that does not work for me.
Okay. So, I guess if there's anything for Stonegate,
We'll do August.
we'll have to push that to August,
We're gonna do an August meeting.
which I think should be fine. Yeah, I mean, I know we historically take the month of August off, but we didn't have a meeting last month.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. That would be
They didn't
helpful.
hear you, they just didn't see you.
Yeah, that would be.
So I mean, to me, I always thought it was silly taking the month of August off, as we meet once a month. But especially because we didn't have a meeting last month, so especially where if we have to push something back, we shouldn't have to wait till September.
Okay,
So I would say we'll do an August meeting.
okay.
So what date would that be? Just how that works.
27th.
August 27th. So Marguerite, in the event we need to push something to that date for you, would that work? Okay.
Yes, that will work on the 27th of August.
Okay, so our next meeting date will still be July 23rd, but just anything with Stonegate, we'll just make sure that gets put on the August agenda and not the July agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And was John on there? I didn't hear him.
I haven't heard from him. Jonathan, are you online?
Oh, guess not. Okay. So first on our agenda technically is the review, discuss, and act Stonegate Landing LLC, westerly side of Somerset Ave, map 9 status update, but I'm going to make a motion that we take that item out of order. Instead, we'll do item 5, public hearing for William Arango, at 2120 Water Street. So do I have, is there a second to take that motion out of order? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that being said, we'll jump to the map 20, lot 127 for the special permit application. I do need 3 voting members. John, as the clerk, is not here to assign them. John, Greg, if you don't mind assigning them, just for the record, I'm just going to ask, I'm not put on this case as a voting member. I'm also on the Historical Commission, and the house the property that's in question is a historical property, and I don't want there to be any potential conflicts of interest.
Sure.
So just make sure that I'm just not, I'll still be on the board and still act as a moderator. So Elise, Dave, or yourself can do it. That's
So,
probably it right
yeah,
now.
I was just gonna say the other 3 board members, but
Okay.
we'll do it that way. So I
Okay.
appoint Dave Phillips, Elise, and Greg Organ.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just read the notice that was in the Gazette, and then we'll have the applicant come up. And this was received and stamped by the town clerk, June 11th, 2024. Notice is hereby given. The Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals will conduct a public hearing at Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. On Tuesday, June 25th, 2024 at 7 p.m. on the special permit application for William Arango property located at 2120 Water Street, being shown as Assessors Map 20, Lot 127, pursuant to Section 2470, catastrophe or demotion.
Demolition.
Okay, I was gonna say catastrophe or demolition
My apologies.
of the Town of Dayton zoning board bylaw in order to build a new two-family structure with a greater volume than existing structure after demolition of the current structure. Any persons interested or wishing to be heard on this matter should attend this hearing. Copies of the application are available in the Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals office, the Dayton Zoning Board of Appeals website, or upon request can be viewed by email by calling 508-669-6431 extension 114 or by emailing keasterday@dayton-ma.gov. So if the applicant can come up, or whoever's going to present the case for the applicant can come up.
He's the applicant, and I'm the.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, if whoever's
gonna go over
you
to
guys
the-
certainly both don't have to come up, but if you guys want, whoever's going to be doing the most of the speaking, we would ask that you come up. So.
Sure. I can explain what we want to do. So as per the drawings, good afternoon, I'm sorry about that, or good evening.
How are you?
Good evening to everybody. So as per the drawings that we filed with the petition, basically what you said, we want to demolish the existing structure because it has been condemned and it's in bad shape and it's, it has to be demolished. So what we want to do, or what the owner and the applicant wants to do, is come back with a brand-new structure that would be a two-family, basically kind of condo, without affecting the area in terms of aesthetics or any style that is going on. Nothing that's going to be very out of the neighborhood character. And then basically what we want to do is respect all the zoning regulations that the city has, and basically be able to build this two one-family, basically, kind of,
2 1-family.
exactly.
Two separate
Yes.
units.
They're gonna be fire separated in between, so it's basically like a condo type of building. That's
But
why
it is one structure.
it's one structure,
Okay.
yes. It's gonna look like one structure. That's what we wanna do. The existing condition of the building is a two-family, so we're going back with a two-family also, just in a different manner, that's all.
I see. Okay.
So if you see, we have basically laid out on the drawing all the side yards, rear yard. We even set back the building because the existing building at the front is not compliant with the existing regulations. So we set it back according to regulations, 55 feet. And then I know there was a question on one of the emails about parking. So what we want to do is that at the first level, we want to have a parking garage, living space, and also at the second level of the condo would be basically all the living quarters, kitchen, dining, bedrooms, all this, so that they can have a view of the lake that's in front, which has a wonderful, beautiful view. That's basically what we intend to do.
Okay. Start with the questions for the board members. Greg?
Yeah, I have just a few.
Sure.
So you came in for relief of setbacks of the size of the property? Is that what it was that you came in for relief of? On
Well-
the zoning
Well, basically, we came back with the lot frontage.
lot frontage? That's all we got as an applicant for, when we filled it out, was just for the lot
Lot
frontage?
frontage and special permit to,
You do have a special permit?
yes, to rebuild the structure.
Okay.
So just for clarification, the frontage isn't required because it's a pre-existing
Pre-existing
non-conforming.
condition, yep.
So
So
they
he didn't-
didn't need a
he didn't
variance.
need
No.
So, but you came here for a special permit?
Yes.
Right.
That's what we're
Yes.
here in
Right.
front of?
Yeah.
Okay, I heard you say a couple things. So is it gonna be owned by one person? Both these is gonna be an owner, is not gonna sell it as an individual and then another individual
That's the idea, yes, to sell it.
to sell it?
Two
So-
families.
So two families.
It's
Yes.
two families altogether, just
Yeah, but it's two-family units.
two one-family units. So it's a
So
two-family.
there's 8 bedrooms in this thing now.
It would be 8 bedrooms,
Eight
but
bedrooms.
4 each.
Eight bedrooms total on the property.
exactly.
4 in
Yeah.
each.
Yeah.
Not 8 per
Yeah,
unit.
8 bedrooms.
Exactly.
Now, the water that goes to this property, you're gonna have two separate water lines going into this piece of property?
Correct.
We have a water moratorium, you're never gonna get it.
Excuse me?
There's a water moratorium in the town of Dayton, you only can use one, the existing one, they're never gonna let you do two.
Okay.
So that's one concern of mine. I live near this. I like the idea of that house coming down. It's an eyesore. I'm not a big fan of separate units. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are the applicant are going to buy this, you're buying it to build two separate, quote unquote, you said condos, but under one roof.
Correct.
So this person is going to own this side and this person is going to own this side.
On the same tax lot, yes, sir.
Same tax lot.
You can go.
And the house that was there had a four-bedroom, right? Four-bedroom septic system in that.
Correct.
So,
And even he had one also, I think it was, I can't remember correctly, but I think the attic was also occupied, like.
so
And he has a shed on the back, and he has
yeah,
another
no,
structure,
I
we're
live-
removing all of
you
that
drive
stuff.
by it, I'm the one with
Yeah.
the little beach in the back on the side
Oh,
with the
okay.
camper. Sure,
Absolutely, of
sure.
course, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so you can be heard, yeah.
So we are already under ownership there, we're not buying it.
No, but you're buying it now to build this,
No, we already own it.
okay, but you own the property, you're gonna build this to sell.
Correct, and it would be building the idea, as I've discussed with Mr. Aguirre at length, it would be building a two-family house, in the setup of a side-by-side, and then the type of ownership, as far as selling them off as condos, would probably come after the fact, after it's built, but the idea is to build exactly what's there now, which is a two-family house, and then type of ownership is a totally separate issue. That's what I was under the impression of, where the relief that we were coming here for was, I believe, it wasn't frontage, right? It was the pre-existing non-conforming
Correct.
overall lot square footage, which is by
The
today's,
size, but that is actually large for that area.
right.
All those homes, it's not detrimental to that neighborhood, it's all the houses are about the same size.
Exactly, and lot coverage and the footprint that we're going back
And
is,
this is gonna be built now that it's being demolished and stuff like that, it's gonna have to be built in the 100-year flood zone. You do know that, with the
Correct,
garage
yes.
beneath, it's gonna have the
Yes.
floodgates.
yes.
So almost if parking was an issue, you would have to put the garage
Oh,
there anyway.
there's no way that this is even gonna fly as a standard unit. It's quite
But
expensive.
I mean, I guess like, one can visualize when he was talking about having the garage underneath, how that might look in
Right.
terms of the type of building that is, and not wanting that kind of building to look like in town.
No,
But-
it's gonna
but he-
look
but
like
he-
one.
But he would have to. In this
this
zone, he
particular
has
case.
to put it,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
no matter what, he has to do
Exactly.
that.
One of the things that's, again, and you might wanna look into this, is that we just had something similar to this, but it had different conditions. There's one water line feeding this home. If you're gonna have two separate owners, you're gonna really need to have two. You're not gonna get it in the town of Dayton, they don't do it right now, there's a water moratorium. And to do a well that close to the Taunton River, never gonna get it. So I think you might wanna look into that, just saying, it's not a deal breaker by any means, but it's gonna be an expense that you're gonna have to figure out.
Right.
This not gonna have an HOA.
Well, I don't know how Dayton recognizes condoing. That's
Well,
that
we
would.
really don't have many of that in town, that's the thing.
I understand that. And as
Yeah.
far as the water goes, I didn't know how Dayton Water Department recognizes, as I've done in other municipalities, how they separate water, whether it's one water line in and then it gets separated after the meter, or if it's one and then, like you were mentioning, an HOA is created and they figure out how to pay it, after the fact, after the water comes into the building. But if that's the case, that you can't bring two water lines, and then we would just
Right
have to
now,
abide
until
by
the
that.
water
Yeah.
moratorium's lifted. But then the other option would be the well, but we all know how close you are to the river, you're never gonna get.
But we much prefer city water. Yeah.
You're never gonna get it.
100%. Yes.
Just throwing it out there. So there was a concern with the driveways, with Tom Ferry. We did reach out to the fire chief, he never responded, I see, so the fire chief isn't too concerned.
Yeah, we had no correspondence.
No, we got
Right.
nothing.
No other correspondence except for the
Right.
highway superintendent.
Right.
So you're gonna raise the shed that's on the building, the property now, so it's gonna be a complete demolition of all building structures
The
on
barn
the
too,
building.
it's like the barn shed.
That would be demolished.
Everything's going.
Yes, and that is, I believe, reflected on one of the septic designs.
Yeah,
That,
it's on this one too.
Yeah.
So
Shows
it's certainly
demolition.
gonna clean up that
Yeah,
lot.
oh, yeah.
It's just,
No,
I
we've
mean,
had squatters living in that house.
Oh,
I'm familiar
yeah.
with the whole property, trust me.
oh, we know all about it. You know, we've been struggling with this property since COVID. This wasn't supposed to be we weren't supposed to have this long. Didn't know that the severity of the occupant that was there. It's to put it in simple terms, it's been a nightmare owning this property. And really, all we're looking to do at this point is to just keep it as it is, as far as type, the type of structure that's on it, whether it was a single family or a multifamily.
right.
We're trying to have all of our options we're not making any money on this property. We're trying to, do everything right by the town of Dayton and basically get out of it, as easily as possible but in turn we'll be improving it immensely,
You have a design of the house you plan on putting on here yet?
So I had a couple of designs on single families,
The
nothing.
roof line is divided amongst units, or is it gonna stay one solid roof line, like it's gonna look like a?
So we never got as far as to have a rendering or a front elevation of a two-family, just a single family, and it basically looked like a pretty nice looking colonial. Yeah, colonial.
You're gonna have the garage underneath for the two, and it'll be built up on the stilt heights, that elevation.
Yes, that would actually look really nice. Especially in that location in comparison to what it looks like now.
Dave, any questions?
The square footage that the proposed coverage of the building, you got 1,200 square feet times 2, putting it to 2,400 square feet. And then you're off on 4709 in the square footage. I don't know if the adding is wrong. If you could just,
I think it's times 2 floors.
yeah, well, I see it, but if it's 24
It's
and
1,200,
24,
it's
48.
It's 12,
It's 1,200 per floor, then times 2.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's like 4,800 square feet for the two.
Yeah, but it's showing here at 4709.99 square feet.
where this is in
Just seems to be off a little bit.
where,
Be the next page here.
What page is that on?
This sheet here is in the red.
Did you put that home?
No.
That's why-
No,
I
I think it was in the
I just didn't know why it was so small, that's why.
Oh, yeah, I did print this one home.
Did you?
that could be,
It's fine, you did whatever you did, it was the
that
right
could be
one.
one of the side yards that you're looking at, maybe, I don't know where you,
He's referring to this right here.
He's referring to the bigger paper, yeah, that's why I asked you to print it from home, because I didn't know what papers you had.
So it's in the zoning analysis, Alex, down at the bottom on the left.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it's showing.
maximum number, oh, okay.
Yeah, 4709. That may.
Well, that means that the footprint that is all together, it gives you, in terms of square footage, that the footprint is gonna be 2,400 square feet for both, but it's less than,
Less than
obviously, the 4,700 square feet.
Gotcha.
That's
Oh,
what
I
it-
see. Okay.
That's just a computation on the zoning analysis,
Dave, do you have any more questions?
because of the
No, I mean,
building
the
coverage is
the only
25%,
thing
which gives you 4,700.
Importance in my mind is exactly what Greg said about the water. Because you.
But keep in mind, that's not something we factor in, that's not something that we
Yeah,
look
but
at.
if it gets to the point and
But
it
that's,
gets there, and
again, we've
what do
talked
we
about
do?
some of this before, that's him to deal with after. We don't factor that into our decision making.
Okay.
It's one of our requirements is not to consider the water.
Okay.
If that's gonna hypothetically, or for any case, if that was a roadblock that he bumped into, that's their problem at that point.
Yeah, I was just giving him a heads up, that's all.
We don't factor that in.
No, yeah, and I appreciate that.
It's great to give him that insight into like, hey,
Well,
heads
I
up.
just don't wanna
but-
see, you get to a certain point and then you got a roadblock.
No, I know, but I just don't want us to belabor things that we shouldn't be. If we have to factor that in, then of course we need to be discussing, but we should not be factoring that into our discussion making. You can certainly ask the questions, you can give your opinions on it.
Yep.
It's kind of like when we have someone that has a question about, like we had that case talking about, oh, there's all ledge there. That's gonna be a nightmare trying to demolish it. We don't factor that in, and we can't deny it because of that reason.
But we can deny it by the abutters.
If that was something
So
being
there is
discussed.
reasons why it gets brought up.
For that, but in that case, yes, but the water, it's not anything that, if you denied it, and that was the reason why, how would Marguerite put that into writing?
Yeah, this can't be the only reason.
No, I understand. I understand.
Do you have any more questions, or you're all set now?
I want to know if is it conform to the height requirements if you put in the,
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not over the maximum requirement of the height is, I think it's 35 feet.
35 feet.
We're not over 35
It's
feet.
just overall square footage,
Curious
right?
what
That
anybody
we
else
need?
has to
We don't
say.
need frontage, we just need the overall square footage
Yeah,
on the
I
lot
know,
side.
in the height.
Well, didn't we
She's
bring
asking
this
about
up
The
at
height
one
of
of
the
the
house,
meetings
yeah.
that
No, we're
we
not.
were gonna try to get with the building inspector going forward, that these packages would be a little more identified? With Jim, he was gonna start trying to make sure that the packages, because what I don't like about how these things come in front of us is we just get a plot. I know that's
It's
what
not-
zoning's for.
It's not their fault either,
No,
but yeah.
it's not, but at the end of the day,
I mean, well,
I'd like to know what,
I
exactly
mean,
what you're
our
putting.
requirements in
Yeah.
general.
I like to see the house, I wanna see the decks, I wanna see all that, the stuff that's on these things, and I don't see that here.
'Cause
It's
I was-
not your fault, this is the
Mr.
package.
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yeah, 1 second, Greg's talking. Go ahead, Greg.
So I really think that the zoning board of appeals needs to get with the building inspector and maybe somehow come up with a plan, so when these people come in here, the questions that we have also can be answered, like, the flood plan. I mean, I know about all this stuff, I'm sorry, this is what I do for a living, so I
No,
know
I
about
get it.
all this, so I look into a little deeper than than I should. That's why I asked what you came in for relief of. So you're increasing the square footage of the house by more than 20% as well on the property line, correct?
On the
More than
property line?
20%. You're increasing the size footprint from the existing house that was on there now
Yes,
by over 20%.
yes,
Okay, so that's another thing. that these-
within zoning regulations.
Right, but those are the things that I think I need to have in the packages as well. It's not you.
No, no, no.
It's
I
not you by
understand
any
what you're
means.
saying.
It's just those, that's something that
had
we
a time
have.
when people would just come up with
A drawing on
a
a napkin.
sketch, pretty,
You
like,
know?
you're not kidding.
No, and I've seen it before, but I'm saying now we are increasing the volume of the house is taking over more than 20% of the volume of the property line. In return, that's
of the
another
existing?
zoning
You
issue.
want to be able to see that.
I want to see that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm
wait,
not
I gotta
opposed to
have
what I'm seeing in front of me. It's not the applicant's fault if this is the way it is. I just think further, if we're gonna have these things, maybe we could get with Jim, speak to him on privately, maybe get some, so the applicant can bring more to it. Because if they're gonna, a lot of people also, you gotta understand, they're coming in here, like, this gentleman owns this land. It's a little different. Some people do a purchase and sales, they put a little bit of money down, they come in here, they wanna maybe
37
throw
by
their things
29.
around, see what they can get. So all the cards on the table and.
Well, that was the one
Yeah.
family. This is the
That's
one
not
family.
particularly the case
Our
here.
is
This
12
house is an
by
eyesore to the neighborhood. I know it very well, and it's had issues
20
with
29
orders
by-
in it.
The actual building was
And I would
29
love
by
to see
37.
something go on here,
That's what's
like I
there now?
said.
Yes.
But,
And then what's
so
the
our
next?
zoning bylaw says you cannot increase, more than 20% of the size of the lot for
30
the
by
house.
30 by 40.
But he's not. He's
I
at
think
20.
30 by 40?
Right?
Yeah, but
He's
times
over.
two.
No, he's over.
He's
But
over,
no, it's
yeah.
the footprint, he's talking about the footprint of the.
The footprint would be
Before we go on, I just want to
60
read into the minutes
by
the Tom Ferry's letter.
Yes.
It's times two, yep.
So we have, this is from the Highway Department. To whom it may concern, after reviewing the proposed project at 2120 Water Street, the only concern I can see at this time, that adequate parking for both units should be accounted for, especially if increasing the footprint of the existing structure. This concern is to head off any unnecessary street parking on an already narrow road. Thank you for the opportunity to review this. Please contact me with any further questions, Tom Ferry, which obviously we did discuss that already, but I just wanted to read into the minutes the correspondence that we had from him. Before I turn it over to any, actually, I'll do that first. Any abutters or members of the public here that want to speak on this case? Just make sure, if you can come to the microphone and just state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, sorry.
Oh, excuse
Wait,
us one
you have
second.
one member on Zoom.
Forgot about that.
Sorry. Well, one more member on Zoom I want to go to. John, go ahead, you have any questions?
Thank you, and I was on before, so I did hear the early part, even though you didn't hear me. My
Okay.
question really at this point is going to be, to some extent, what you referred to with the letter from Mr. Ferry, before you hear from the abutters. I'd like to know what the developer is planning at this point in terms of parking, or what they're, besides what they're showing? Because right now, from what I can tell on it, it doesn't appear that if there were emergency vehicles where this is a multifamily unit, there would be enough space for emergency vehicles.
There
I
is,
don't see-
because the garage is gonna go underneath, John. I don't know if you heard that part of the meeting.
Okay.
You might not have, I think that was before you got on, but that is because one of the first things that they did say was that the garage would be underneath.
Okay. All
So,
right, thank you.
yep, no problem.
So another thing I want, if I could.
John, do you have anything else, John, before? What was it?
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Continue.
okay.
So I have one more thing before you say something, please. So the driveways, they're gonna be touching each other like this. There's gonna be a grass between them.
This is like you.
Sure, I just see that close on the drawing. I just wanted to make
Exactly,
sure.
but it's just to show that it's a mimic
Okay.
on both sides, but we
Gotcha.
can always separate the driveway.
Sure.
A little bit, have a separation, planting, all these things. That just gets done when we
course.
actually go into
Yep.
something.
I just saw the drawing, it just showed it tight,
Yeah, no,
that's all.
definitely, but this is more about having areas and zoning
Mm-hmm.
than actual design of how we're gonna be doing landscaping, driveway, all these things.
Okay.
Good, sorry.
Okay. My name is Donna Webster. I'm the current Commodore of the Taunton Yacht Club, which is directly across the street from this property. First of all, our concern is not at all with the demolition or construction of a new, as you said, it is an eyesore, so to us, that's not an issue. But we have had so many problems with parking in that area. When the other house was occupied, they were continuously parking on our lawn and leaving trash and debris and ruining that section of lawn. We have since gone through conservation because we had dredging and this whole issue, and we put a lot of money into our lawn. And I don't see where there's going to be adequate parking for 8 bedrooms, which means if there's 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids living in the family, where are they all parking? A one-car garage in the driveway is not going to do it.
No, it's not just one parking. That's why we said that the existing property is very close to the property line. It's almost like 5 feet, I think. So that's why we're proposing that the new construction is going to be 55
Set
feet
way back.
away from the property line, so that you could have parking also in the front. And it doesn't mean that the first floor is going to be just for one parking. It could be for 2 cars because we have 30 feet in width. So you could even do the whole first floor, basically basement and level. So you can fit 4 cars in that space if you wanted to and not have any other front yard, if that's the problem. But if we're going by requirements for parking, it's 1 per dwelling, no matter what, how many bedrooms you have on the property, right?
And that's
So-
fine, because if that's what you want to put, you can, but then that puts the burden on the yacht club where we have events, so our own members need parking. We store equipment, the docks on that side in the winter, and we've had to find people to move their vehicles just so that we can operate freely on our own land.
But no.
No, you
That's the
can't.
intention.
I understand, and I don't think that was their intention either. I just want to be sure that there is adequate parking, that we don't have to deal with this all over again. And during the construction process, we also do not want the construction vehicles on the lawn. We just have to be cautious of this. It's a burden on the yacht club, and these people actually pay money to belong there, so it's very hard, and we want to be cordial, you know.
Completely understandable. I can't foresee that being an issue. I understand your concern with it, but like you were saying, it's not our intention. We'll do everything in our power to make that a non-issue.
And that house that was there now has a driveway about from here to the back of the chairs. The ones that's on that property
It's
now.
that.
So hopefully.
And
now
I
being-
know,
yeah.
stepped aside to show her that, you know,
Yeah.
it wasn't just like a garage, there
No,
is a much bigger driveway.
I walk that every day, and I see what you were up against. You had cars over there. I witnessed it myself, because there was no place to
doubling the
park.
bedrooms,
They're proposing to put 2 cars, if I'm not mistaken, is it a 1-car garage or 2-car garage per
Not double the bedroom.
unit?
I think he said 1, but 1-car garage.
Yeah, as of right now,
So it's 1 car inside, okay?
showing the one.
Yeah, and then you have the little turnout. We could put a
You
car,
can do it too.
and you could put one behind that as well, on each one.
55 feet of front yard
Yes.
for driveway and parking also.
which is much more than what's there. So I can see why.
That house is built right on the street. This was
It's-
Mrs. Lane's
geez.
house, wasn't it?
Yep.
Lois Lane's house
You
years
mean
ago.
Helen Lane?
Helen Lane.
Helen Lane, I don't go that far
I
back,
wanna
I
say
don't know.
this was her house. Yeah, she was my kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, comparing to the other houses, we're gonna be basically even further into the property.
Then what the-
existing.
I mean, look at the. I mean, even that one satellite view map, it's going to be considerably farther back than the rest. So they're going to have the biggest driveway on not the street, but that part of the
No,
street.
on the street.
Yeah.
I know.
On the
There's only
okay,
6
well, I
houses
don't
on
want to
that
say the whole
road.
street, but what's
Yeah.
You're right, Seth.
No, you are.
but
That-
it's
that
going to
part.
have way more. So if anything, you're going to have the best parking on their
Oh, yeah.
property.
And as the yacht club has stated, I've witnessed it, the guys usually actually put timbers and stuff to try to keep the people that were living there on the property washed out. We get a lot of water down there. You're gonna have white caps in your front yard, no doubt in my mind. A southeast storm, don't go there, because it's not gonna be fun. They block that whole area off, they come down with loaders, because you can't drive down there. That's why I'm saying, you know, a couple other things, but that's between you and the building inspector, for the flood zone. And like I said, like the concerns, that I'm glad that they're here, because I was gonna bring it up, about the yacht club, because I witnessed they did a ton of work in the last year out front. They really came out nice, guys, really did. And they load all their docks over there, and when they have a turkey raffle, right? And I like going to it, and, let me just say this, they're very cautious about who parks on the street with that. They come out and they, nope, you either park here or you're not out here.
Not being a board member, but my biggest thing was, I know the stigma, and often wrong stigma, that 2 families can get. People hear that in their head, and you think, I don't want to turn it on, and I totally get that.
No.
So my biggest concern was that part of Dayton, I think, is very Dayton, so to speak. It's one of our.
I have a 4-family.
Do you know what I mean?
You know,
It's a very.
I'm not saying that, I understand that.
It's a very.
Yeah, and that's why I
would
asked
hate-
about the
and
roof
I don't
line.
think this building is going to bring that down.
No,
I
if
think
he's
it's gonna-
building a colonial-style home without 2 separate roof
I
lines,
think it's.
I think it's gonna
look
fit the
fine.
criteria of the
More than
neighborhood.
fine, yeah.
Yes.
Are there any public members on Zoom that want to speak on this case before we close the public hearing aspect?
Bob, did you have anything?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm only concerned with, as well as the construction, parking and all, the demolition, you know, before, the after, the during, the asphalt, we just put down an asphalt driveway as well as the lawn, and, within a week, after we put the asphalt driveway down, you know, the people that were living in the house came in with their truck and tried to turn around on the asphalt driveway. You know what that can do.
Oh, yeah.
And luckily I was there and I was able to divert a lot of damage from it. But that's our biggest concern, is basically the befores, the afters, and during all the construction.
So the one big thing about this house, and I'm not saying this is how they're gonna do it, but they have the adequate down the side, they can put the dumpsters in the back and pull to the back. But when the dumpster truck pulls out of that, such a narrow road, 1 car parked on the street, you guys know, a fire apparatus cannot get by. So it's very narrow road, again. So those are legitimate concerns that, you know, we be very cautious when we're doing that. So when we're pulling a truck out, if this is approved, that we do not try to go onto her land. Again, truck drivers have got their mind of their own, but, you know, maybe put some cones out there so they don't go beyond while you're doing the construction. I don't know if we can put a condition on that for that. I don't know if that's something that we're able to do as a board.
Not
Don't
really.
think so, but I don't think the applicant would be opposed to doing something of that nature to protect.
Basically, just use caution, that's all.
Yeah, just be careful of his property, that's all.
Yeah, again, we're excited to see
No, and
that
me too.
go,
God,
you
yes.
know, but,
And I think what we have before us is a very well presented and put together case. If I'm going to take how they're going to handle the construction based on their presentation, I have no doubt that there's going to be any kind of haphazard or careless construction or anything on their part. I mean, I think it's one of the better proposals that we have, and I think a lot of times when you hear 2-family, people are trying to maximize and get the most money out of their project. It does not sound like that their first intention was to do that, and I think when you go into a case like this with that mindset, you kind of put together something
Well,
different.
you came out and your first thing you said was condo. to me, that, I was like, oh, no,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah, it's
So the word when you said, I was like, oh,
yeah.
I got it.
I know what
But
you
when
mean.
you said it, I was like, oh, here we go.
It's just the type of ownership.
Sure.
It's not like we're not building a housing project.
No. But I can see what you were like. Wait, condo, but
Yeah,
it's,
and like I
it's
said,
not.
the reason why we know about the water line, we just had something similar on another case, and the water department was pretty adamant, absolutely not one line. And then now it becomes an association with the water department, water, and then now you got a roof, you need a roof, this guy can't pay for it, that guy can't pay for it. That's why I asked if the roof is one solid roof,
Right.
as long as it's not stepped. So somebody's gonna have to bite the bullet to fix it in 18 years, we'll be dead and gone,
pays?
hopefully, me, but,
Right.
you know, so.
Even for construction, in terms of having one roof is easier than
Yeah, just it's separating things like that. Now it looks, this is this, this is that. And now it's fitting the criteria of the neighborhood. So it's gonna be a colonial style home.
Is there a copy of the sole drawings and plans that you presented? Is
Oh
there?
yeah, yeah. I think the whole meeting packet should be online. I mean, I know it not should be. It is online.
It's online.
We don't have a design of the home, we have a footprint
Right,
of
but anything that we have on our table right now in front of us, you can access right now online.
Okay.
If you have any questions on how to get it, we can certainly help you with
Yeah,
that. But
okay.
yeah, when anything for zoning or any town board is posted for the meeting, it's always posted online for people to look at ahead of time. Or you can go to the office and get a hard copy if they have a hard time navigating on the website. But
That's fine.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
to build a house in this neighborhood is gonna be quite expensive, because you can't put any utilities in the floor, first floor, it has to go up. Flood zone, so there's an expense that makes it, kinda washes that a little bit out for them. I get what they're up against. Yeah, and I think it's not detrimental to the neighborhood, it is a larger lot, one of the largest lots in that,
Right.
if not the.
It might be.
Might be.
You know,
It might be.
the people across the street, I forgot their name, they were a Chinese couple, they really fixed up their
Yes,
house
they did.
nice, you know, and the neighborhood's starting to come around, and this was always been like, oh, boy.
The one thing that wasn't.
Yeah, so.
All right, well, thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
That being said, I will make a motion that we close the public hearing portion of this case. Oh, yeah, go ahead, John.
If there's anyone online, because you kind of got away from that, who wanted to respond.
Oh yeah, I don't think that there was, but was anybody online for this case?
Mr. Chairman, can I speak on this case?
Yes.
Quickly? So I had been in touch with the building inspector at the town's request prior to this case being filed. So the question had to do with the two-family use, which, as you may be aware of, is also a non-conforming use in this area.
Yep.
And there was a question around when that two-family use last ceased to be used in that way, and whether or not that could be carried forward at this stage of the application. The building inspector and I had some correspondence, and it was my understanding that that was going to be made part of the packet, but I didn't see that in the agenda when I reviewed that tonight.
It's definitely not.
So I'm just wondering if that could also be added, because I think it would be a helpful piece of information for the zoning board.
We have the
have
app.
in the record.
Yeah, we have the applicant who
So I
just
can-
came forward. So
So I can respond to that. So are you referring to the tolling statute, as far as the last time it was,
For the use group. that was
how
used.
long people about? So, in the emails, I'm not sure if, the lady is.
Margaret Mitchell, she's the zoning board attorney.
Yes.
Okay, I think it was you that was in the email. Mr. Aguilar had responded that even if the tolling had worked, had kicked in, that it still wouldn't be until, I believe, August, September, or October that would make the full 2 years since it's been vacant.
Oh.
Is that sounding familiar?
So yes, so that's what I'm trying to say. There was a series of correspondence between the building inspector and myself that I thought that was going to be made part of this packet.
Okay.
You will see it as part of the packet of information that was put before you. It would involve, in that case, it would need to be made clear to the applicant that they need to obtain a building permit prior to the expiration
Right.
of that time frame, which I seem to remember is October, but I'm not positive. So it's a very tight window for you.
Yes, and I appreciate that. We are well aware of that. And after that email from Mr. Aguilar, I had kind of considered that a non-issue at this point. I was trying to get in front of the zoning board, but you're reminding me of it now, and we will definitely be mindful of that while pulling the building permit.
Right, and so I think what Margaret, Attorney Mitchell, was referring to was that she didn't see the correspondence literally in our packet. It's not that it didn't
Understood.
happen. She
Understood.
didn't see it in this. She was making sure that we knew about it because we didn't see it in here. So that means no one else.
Understood.
So okay.
Understood. I think we're on the same page with
So
that.
I'd like to have that entered into the record before you close the public hearing. I think it's an important piece of your record and something that you may want to address through a condition.
I was just gonna say that. Do you want that to be a condition? Okay.
Well, there's two pieces. I mean, I want the actual email exchange to be added into your record. I think Carrie might be able to access that for the board.
I have it right now.
Okay, so I think that needs to be submitted into the record. And then secondly, the board needs to review that correspondence, and my suggested condition would be that the building permit must be issued prior to, the 2-year, lapse of time from when the property was last used as a 2-family dwelling.
So.
And I just don't remember the date. I can try to go back through the email correspondence as you're making your deliberations.
No.
I might be able to tell you what that date is.
Now, Margaret, does the board have the authority to grant an extension on that date since we're here now and just, or?
No, it does not. So that's the problem that we had, and that was a conversation that the discussion I was having back and forth with the building inspector, is that unfortunately that's not the type of extension that the board can grant. You have a 2-year window because it's a use, it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. This is also a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling. So there's 2 elements here, but the use piece the zoning board has no authority over that.
Will pulling a demolition permit satisfy that?
It needs to be a building permit according to what the building inspector says.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it'll be an issue because I think I can work with Mr. Aguirre on pulling a building permit for a number of items, demolition being one of them, which is obviously the first step. So I have a feeling that we'll be okay, but I completely understand getting it into the record, especially that email correspondence, because it spells it out pretty clearly.
Right. And if not, then the outcome would be that you would have the authority to build the building, but it would have to be a single-family dwelling and not a 2-family.
So if for whatever reason that didn't happen, it wasn't like, too bad you can't do anything, they can still proceed, but it would have to be a 1-family.
They would lose the ability to pursue a 2-family, but they would not lose the ability for them to request a special permit to demolish and build a larger dwelling. That's a larger dwelling because it's a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling. They still have that ability to come before you under 2470 to demolish and within 12 months build another building. And in this case, because it's greater in size, they need a special permit.
So basically, just so I'm clear, it would, if that date came and went, we would at that point, if looking for multifamily, we'd be seeking more relief, a different type of relief in a different
I don't believe there's any relief that you can seek. So that's what I'm trying to be clear about.
Okay.
There's no zoning relief.
At that point,
You have a 2-year window under the zoning bylaws and under the statutory law in Massachusetts for pre-existing non-conforming uses.
Okay, so
that 2-year window will lapse, and there's no further zoning relief that you can get because this is not an allowed use or even a use that would be authorized by special permit in this zoning district.
Understood.
So the only way that you can act on the 2-family aspect of this is if the building inspector's opinion, he requires a building permit to be issued prior to that lapse date.
Okay, so I guess I would be in agreement, and it would be in my best interest to have that correspondence entered as well. Yeah.
Correct. And then the second, especially because for title purposes down the road, this is something you're going to want to have clear. Somebody else might have determined that something more than a building permit was needed, but the building inspector has determined that all that's needed is a building permit prior to that lapse date.
So that will all be stated clearly in the zoning decision.
I will be able to do that when I draft up that decision if I have this correspondence to refer to.
Okay, I
Because
think
then the board has it in its record and it's part of your deliberations and your consideration.
So that being said, do you feel then it's not wise to proceed on making a vote on this tonight? Because if that's the case, we can't push it to next month's meeting because Marguerite can't make that meeting. Unless we no longer need her to be there for the meeting for that deliberation. But then we're cutting into August, which is even closer to October at that point. That's my only concern. I mean, or do you feel like we are still safe to proceed with a vote tonight?
I think you're safe to proceed with a vote as long as Carrie can get this information into the record and you can look at it before you make your vote. So you all need to review that information. You need to consider it as part of your deliberations because of the request for the two-family, and that two-family is outside the special permit request, but it creates there's a legal issue associated with that will arise in a few months if you don't take certain action. So what's before the zoning board right now is simply the special permit application to demolish a pre-existing non-conforming building and to build a larger structure. However, they're also asking that larger structure be a two-family. If you were to look at your zoning use table of use regulations, you'd see that two families are not allowed in this zoning district. Because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, it has lapsed in use. There is a 2-year window.
Well, it hasn't lapsed
They
yet.
have a grace period in order to
Right.
reestablish that use. And the building inspector has determined, and that's why it's important this correspondence be in front of you. He has determined that in order to reestablish that use, they need to have a building permit issued for a two-family dwelling. And he has determined that use expires, I believe it's in October. I'd have to go back and look in the correspondence to see the actual date that he believes that is going to expire of this calendar year.
Carrie is nodding right now. Carrie, have you found that exact date?
So, do you want me just to go ahead and read this into record?
Yeah, I think that's going to be best, Carrie. And I do have another comment that I want to make, but let's take care of this first.
Okay. So there was various emails going back and forth, but I'll read the latest Tuesday, June 4th from Jim Aguirre, the building commissioner. He states, "Hi, Carrie. I have read Attorney Mitchell's correspondence, and it appears that in this reference case, the document provides a legal opinion regarding the use of a non-conforming dwelling. Although I find the case as referenced in the provided decision similar in context, it differs significantly with timelines. In the case as referenced by Attorney Mitchell, a significant amount of time has passed since the home was last used, and at the time of appeal, the permit still had not been issued. In Dighton's case, the applicant has petitioned the board ahead of the 2-year expiry and could obtain a building permit before the 2-year lapse. Granted, occupancy would be delayed based on construction timelines. It would appear to me that the situation is similar yet differs from the referenced case. The 2-year expiry of use can be debated to be somewhere between July and October of 2022. Special permit can be obtained prior to the 2-year lapse. Building permit can be obtained prior to the 2-year lapse. Occupancy can occur less than 12 months from permitting. This neighborhood has other two-family and multi-unit homes. Dighton created the zoning district to promote the use of waterfront. In turn, it caused all of the existing residential uses in the district to become non-conforming, therefore creating significant hardship to property owners. It should be further noted that this is an older developed area of town that is predominantly residential. I feel the petition should be heard for a two-family home." And then, did you want me to read something else,
Do we have an
Marguerite?
exact date?
What's that?
Is there an exact date?
August.
Excuse me.
So does that mean October 31st?
So
As late as October 31st?
he stated,
Not sure.
That's it, yeah.
in his email dated May 30th,
Yep.
Morning, Carrie. After extensive research, I have found the property located at 2120 Water Street was vacated less than 2 years ago. I have an email from July of 22 that 22 that was sent to me from Mrs. Goulart. She was informed that the occupants had moved out and wanted me to be aware. I also have an email and perk test data from the health agent from October of 2022 confirming that the home was vacant. Therefore, it is my professional opinion that the applicants have until July of this year to officially submit for relief.
Which they did.
The two-family status will be considered abandoned after July 2nd of this year.
So not October.
So, yeah, I think then he went further in his opinion, but I don't know that he ever gave us the actual date in this email, unfortunately.
He did not, but he said he was informed by Mrs. Goulart, but then it was confirmed in October.
But what? But so we know. Okay, so we know it's not July 2nd, but we now know what date in October.
So I never realized that exact time that the unit became vacant was going to be an issue, but I will say that we went through a very lengthy eviction process there, and I know that the eviction wasn't final. Final meaning that the lawyer notified the court. It wasn't until November. The tenant the occupant had been long gone by then. Right before the perk test is when they moved out, because we didn't step onto the property until they were out, and I didn't even send. It was a hostile tenant situation there, and we stayed far away. But if you're saying that the perk test was at the end of October, it had to have been 3 or 4 weeks prior to that we got word that the tenant was gone. And I can get all of that information from the eviction lawyer, but they actually left before they were forced to because of health reasons. I think went to the hospital. But so I can get that information to Mr. Aguiar, but if it's up for interpretation, obviously July to October, I want it to be October, but I think it is October. So I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, I know. Yes. So I mean.
So I guess it's one of two options to the board. You can take it under advisement, and you can continue it until July's meeting and make your determination then, so that this information as to the exact date of the tenant moving out can be determined, and this email chain can be added into the record. And then the builder has the ability to act at his own risk under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A. So you would have basically from the night of the board's vote until whenever.
Oh no.
Did we lose her?
Yeah. That's
So-
3 months.
Should I wait for her to come back on to respond to that, or?
I would, but I mean, just so we know. I mean, again, I'm not. The board members will have to decide this, not me. I apologize, but like.
So
Zach, partly what Marguerite is saying is that you can vote tonight, but you can make the requirements a condition of the vote, and you can set a timeline for that.
That is what it sounds like she's saying, but when she was giving her, the board has
Two options.
one or two options. She didn't say option 2 yet.
Right.
So that's why I don't think it's wise for us to do anything until she's back, because
I totally, I think that's where she was going with this as a possibility, though. That could be we'll wait for her to come back, but what I'm hearing her say is that this, your vote tonight could be conditioned based on, and you would have to, indicate that in the vote.
which is obviously not that I have much of a choice, but it's okay with us because
right.
we either need to get it done for July or for October, and I have a feeling that after having a conversation with Mr. Aguiar that we can get on the same page as far as when it was vacated.
I would think so. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. And I guess we wouldn't need to push this to the August meeting, because if in the event that we do motion to continue this, we wouldn't have to wait for August because of Marguerite. Her job would, quote unquote, would be done. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, we have to wait for a meeting for her to be there. So I guess we wouldn't necessarily, if we did have to continue, we wouldn't have to wait until August for her benefit, for her.
It'll be continued to the next scheduled meeting.
Right. If in fact it's what the board does decide to do. Here we go. I was like, hopefully she knows she's gone. Doesn't think she's there the whole time, but she's good now. Oh, what a cliffhanger. There we go.
Scary.
Sorry about that.
It was great. I said that was definitely of a cliffhanger. Well, she didn't say option 2. She didn't say option 2 yet.
Yep, no. So the other option is to vote on it tonight, and you would have to just be very creative in the wording of your condition. But then at that point in time, you know, the developer isn't going to necessarily know what the date is, so.
Right.
You can vote on it tonight. The same thing applies. The developer can proceed at his own risk. There's two pieces to what Mr. Aguirre, when Kerry read that email, that what he was saying, it's both a combination of getting the building permit prior to the lapse, the 2-year limit, and then getting an occupancy permit within a 12-month period after that.
Right. So that then again, it's like, there's a big difference between October 1st and October 31st. We just know October 2024.
To be safe, I would suggest that you make it October 1st.
Right.
Because that way, if it's October 2nd, you know.
But we only need that detail if we're voting on it tonight with that condition. If we're taking it under advisement, we don't need to worry about that exact date because hopefully we'll find out from Jim in time, right?
Or the developer will have that answer for
Right.
you.
Right.
One or the other.
Right, that's what I mean. So like, I guess if we do motion to take it under advisement, we don't need to worry about the wording of the careful wording of the condition if we're taking it under advisement. If we do, if the board does, Marguerite, I'm not sure if you're here, but I'm not a voting member, so if the voting members do decide to take a vote on this tonight, they do need to be very careful with their wording of it. So it's a matter of what you guys want to do. I mean, once we close the public hearing aspect, we can't take in any more information. So if we do that, we can't take it under advisement. So you guys have to decide what you want to do. How do you guys want to proceed with this in terms of if you're prepared to make a vote tonight, then certainly do that. We got to close the public hearing.
I'm just going to tell you a couple things that ain't enough time for this developer to do this. Have you guys gone through COMCOM and all that yet? Conservation?
No.
None of that stuff? There's a lot of different boards that are going to have to look at this, and I'm listening to what's being said here. He is under the gun. It's not our fault, but at the end of the day, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to look at all avenues here. I just don't see that he can have that done by October 1st. With all these other bullshit stuff that you gotta get.
Either way, you mean? Well, I mean, again, that's...
No, so I'm not saying that they're gonna have to go in front of conservation, but we are within the wetlands. All right, there is, I don't see anything on this map delineated that it's on it that I'm seeing here, but we do have different maps that the town looks at.
Right.
So Board of Health, obviously is gonna want the building down right away. That's no problem there. I don't see that to be the issue, but I think conservation is gonna be an issue with them. And when do they meet next?
They are once a month.
There was one too. I don't know what day.
18th.
Thank you.
Third Thursday?
18th is our next meeting.
18th, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm on contract.
So,
Did you want to be?
they have the time to put that application, that they need this approved to go to that next phase, though.
That's, I mean, again,
Am I right on that? Isn't that how it works? The building department submits it to the boards, where they were looking for relief, obviously.
after we do our piece.
Right, exactly. And we're close.
It's a decision that you guys have to make in terms of what you want to do. It sounds like both of them are viable options. You just have to decide which one you want to do. If you guys do decide to vote yes, or sorry, if you guys do decide to make a vote tonight, we need to close the public hearing, final deliberation, and make that vote. Or we put it under advisement, and then you guys make the vote at the next meeting. But if you guys remember, you need to be very careful with the wording. If you guys do decide to vote.
Well, we
tonight.
don't have a date.
But Marguerite was saying, if
We
you,
can make a condition based on
right,
the date
right.
that's found.
But the thing is, because she said it would probably be wise to, if you guys do vote yes, make that condition and put October 1st to be safe, because it's the first date in October. So even though you're right, we don't have that date, she says it would be wise to pick October 1st, because then you're definitely good, as opposed to October 31st, and then you find out, oh crap, it was the 2nd. So that's the thing. Yep.
It would seem to me, I didn't hear the date October 1st. What I heard is October. So
Right.
unless I'm missing something, if they say,
That's why
You are missing something, because I asked Marguerite, I said there's a difference between October 1st and October 31st, so what date? And she said, if I were you, I would put October 1st. Nowhere in writing do we have that is the date. She's just suggesting.
I guess what I'm saying to you is that from my perspective, hearing everything from afar, it makes more sense to keep the public meeting open because it keeps the whole process cleaner. The developer, through their counsel, knows what they need to come back with at the July meeting. And if they come back with it, then it's going to be a clean vote and it won't have to have that condition attached to it.
That's true. I mean, it's up to three board members what you guys want to do, but we do need to make some kind of motion either way.
Well, we can't start pulling the permit. Like, we can't start working on that tomorrow unless you guys vote tonight and give me the condition. So
You can still raise the house, because that's under an order from the town. They want it out of there before a building permit would be issued regardless.
right, but we need to know, because we need to know what direction we're going with completely before we start demolishing the house.
He's saying if you put it under advisement that he doesn't know.
I don't.
As opposed to
Even though I have a feeling where it's going to go,
You
and
can go to Concom. You could still go to Concom without the zoning board's vote.
Yeah,
So
I
you
would
still
get
can
that-
do every piece you
I
need to
would
do
get that
anyway.
rolling,
right, but that doesn't stop the time clock, right?
No, but it has to be done, you won't get a permit unless COMCOM signs on it.
Right. Well, I would probably get a demo permit, right?
Demolition permit, yeah, you get a permit to raise the structure,
Right.
get rid of that.
Yeah. From my side of things, I have to go for me to start spending the money and go. I have to go in order. Know that I'm okay with the zoning board, which I think it's going to go in the right direction, and whatever conditions have to be put in there as far as the correspondence goes, that date is up for interpretation. I know that Mr. Aguilar and myself will land on a date in a different conversation after tonight, but I would need the zoning decision with that as a condition so I can just start on this as soon as tomorrow, because these meetings are a month apart. It's the summer. I don't know if it would get pushed into July or then into August.
Ours wouldn't, but
That means a world of difference on my side of things. So
for other you don't know how other boards would choose to make their meetings for July.
exactly.
Right,
So
I see what you're saying.
and the conditions that you're proposing about putting there, however the language gets written out, we're all on the same page. It just needs to be worded strategically. So obviously I'm not voting here, but if I had my vote, let's make the decision and put the conditions in.
No, I know.
And while you think about that, why don't I discuss my other point that I wanted to make, which was unrelated to
yes,
the two-family use.
yes.
So I wanted to be clear that this special permit under this particular provision of your zoning bylaw is not what you're used to issuing a special permit on for pre-existing non-conforming aspects of cases. So you're not determining whether or not the new house will be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the current house, because that would only happen if you were dealing with a special permit under other provisions of the bylaw. This is just a straight special permit. So I know, Zach, you were talking earlier about what is before the board to consider or not. You actually should be looking at all of the provisions around criteria for special permit in 5320 of your zoning bylaw. So you want to make sure that you're determining, and if you need to establish conditions around traffic, flow and safety, parking and loading, you have the ability to do that with this special permit, such as the abutters' concerns around not having any construction vehicles parked on their lawn or in the roadway during the construction phase. That would be an appropriate condition to impose here under the criteria for a special permit.
Typically,
Same goes for the adequacy of utilities. It is appropriate for you to have been talking about the moratorium in this particular request, and this is not a request that you see before you very often. So I understand where the confusion comes in. It's not a provision of the bylaw that tends to be applied for or used very often. So you have that ability to ask those questions and make those determinations around the adequacy of utilities and ask the developer what their plans are if the moratorium is not removed. Now, thinking about what this you know, this whole two-family timeframe limit is. Because that, your condition will be not just the building permit, the moratorium isn't really coming into play for the building permit, but it will come into play for your occupancy permit. You'll have a period of 12 months where you'll need to, according to the building inspector, and just his correspondence right now, it appears you would need to get your occupancy permit within 12 months of issuance of your building permit.
Right.
Again, I completely understand why you would be preferring to get a vote tonight, because it will allow you to move forward with a known determination by the zoning board. However, perhaps through some conversations with the building inspector, you may get some clarification on timeframes that might give you a little bit more breathing room. And it may be worthwhile to try to wait on that vote to get that information brought to the board. It's really your call as a developer, I think. I think you can read this zoning board's, you know, discussion with you in such a way that you still have other permitting requirements, it sounds like, that you'll need to pursue. And
And again, just to clarify, demolition is something that he can do because he doesn't need to go before us for that. So he can.
well, he needs to make sure that once it's demoed, in order to maintain the pre-existing non-conforming
He's only got so much time.
Right.
Structure, so the application that he's coming to you under, which is 2470, I just have to pull it up.
Yep.
That requires that it has to have been something that was demolished within 12 months. So once it's demolished, he has 12 months from that date. This is a different, different time.
I know.
In order to build, to be able to use the special permit that you're granting to him.
Gotcha.
Or potentially will be granting to him with this
So
application.
if he does that hypothetically tomorrow, that sets that timeline.
But also, I'm under the impression, and this is a conversation with Mr. Aguilar, I need to get a permit pulled before there's issue number one, which is the occupancy, the last time the building was occupied. As long as I meet that date with a building permit, then once I actually demolish the building, then there's a new time clock there. So there's a little bit of finesse that can be done on my part there, and I you know, am happy to be given the opportunity to do that. But I just think from a financing standpoint, which is not anything the board is here to review, I couldn't demolish this building without a zoning decision in place. I just couldn't. Even like a bank wouldn't even give a construction loan. You know what I mean? Without so I would need the zoning decision, so I know just a piece of paper alone is worth something.
I see what
And
you're
so
But
that,
you're gonna be taking chances, because we're gonna put conditions on it, and based on unforeseen dates.
That's if we're voting on it tonight, though.
That's what we were
So-
just talking about, because that's what he wants us to do, is what I'm
Well,
listening to the applicant.
right.
It's up to the board's decision whether they go that route or not. You know, because they're gonna make, there's gonna be, like, the controlling of the demolition. As you heard Marguerite say, we can state that if that gets out of control, we can stop right then and there. So, and again, that's nothing that we want to do. The vehicles in the front yard, this is the reason, one of the reasons why I've been saying right along, I think when we do get applications for special permits and things like this, we need to have drawings. Not just this, what we have. It's not the applicant's fault. It's not that at all. Because there's so many other things that we can answer ourselves looking at it. You know, this gentleman's still gonna now go out and get a design. We still don't know if it's gonna be a two-car garage under each one or one.
Well, right. We know
There's-
it could be either,
No,
but they
but
don't
that's
know
the thing. I guess, so now you're gonna go out and get a set of drawings. Drawings don't just pop out in a week. So he's gonna have to get a set of drawings done. Then those drawings, the engineers are gonna have to bring that over to him. He's gonna take that, he's gotta fill out the application here. Meanwhile, I gotta go to Concom. I don't see the time frame to make this work with, I don't wanna make a decision on this to say, okay, we're gonna give you till October 1st for a two-family, single dwelling, and then, now you're gonna come back in front of us because it didn't get done in time to ask for relief to put a single-family dwelling on this property.
Are you saying you would prefer to take it under advisement, then vote tonight, is what you're saying?
I understand the hardship of where he's at right now, I do, but this it sucks, you know, at the end of the day, I feel we should put this under advisement.
It's up to you guys board members. But either way,
I don't want to put conditions on the property that are unnecessary.
That's
I hate
also
to say
true.
October 1st to this guy, and
And
it's
find out it
actually
could
the
have been the
31st.
28th. Yeah, right. Yep.
But I'm just so I'm clear, the conditions that would need to be put, I think, are whether it's at this meeting or the next meeting, it's going to be the same conditions. The only
I'm
thing,
gonna give you
Not
October
necessarily.
1st, and if it comes back and it's actually October 30th, we can't change
If we
that.
voted it, if we put it under advisement and approved
That's
it next
where I don't
meeting,
want you to
the
do
conditions
Right.
could be
Get yourself in
completely different.
trouble.
Could be completely different, one way or the other. As opposed
Right.
to tonight, where if we pick the first, then it's the first. 'Cause that's what we voted on. As opposed to,
I'm not opposed to the piece that you're proposing, but again,
it doesn't sound like anybody on the board.
but so just to get clarification on that, it's Marguerite, right?
Yes, yep, yep.
Marguerite, with that correspondence that Kerry has with Mr. Aguirre, once we iron that out, which will have to be tomorrow or sometime after this meeting, that's going to determine when that date actually is, isn't it?
Correct.
So why do we have to put October 1st in?
I don't think you're right on that.
Oh,
Am I right on this? If we say October,
After that's clarified, you
Yeah.
can use whatever the date is at that point.
right
Yeah,
now
so-
it's October 1st,
if
right?
you make, it's only the first if we put that in wording as a condition.
Yeah, I don't-
If you just
I
say
don't-
October,
Yeah, I don't see.
then that's where it gets messy.
I don't see why it has to be October 1st as of tonight. Why, if we're already putting the condition in that we're going to defer to Mr. Aguirre and how he interprets that correspondence,
Why put the
that
first?
whatever date in October it is up for interpretation and discussion anyways. So why hold me to the 1st?
Right. So
Because, so for two reasons. One is that based on what you presented tonight, you talked about them having moved out 2 to 3 weeks prior to the perk test. I don't know when that perk test was done. If that was done in the beginning of October, then it's possible they moved out in September. If that
Right.
If it turns out that they actually didn't move out until November, which is another date that you threw out there, then you have actually more time than the October dates that are chosen.
it's a big gray
At
area.
the
Right.
same time, I do really think that it's worthwhile for you to understand the water moratorium elements and how that's going to come into play with all of this for you. You may need to explore that with the Dayton Water District. I don't know how long that moratorium will still be in effect for. They may have a better sense of that.
So my only
Again, I have no problem with the board voting tonight. I can structure conditions as generously as we possibly can make them tonight with the board. Or we can take it under advisement, and you still have steps that you can take without having to worry about getting a demolition permit. You still can explore with the Dayton Water District. You can still apply to Concom for whatever, if it's a notice of intent that you have to file, if it's, some sort of order of conditions that you're going to need to get from the Conservation Commission, that application can still go forward. It doesn't require the zoning board's approval to file that application.
right.
Does he have to apply with FEMA too, because it's within the flood zone?
So I just don't know enough about this property, and that would really come down to what he would need to get a building permit. But
The-
he will need to get every town board's approval to sign off on that building permit. I wasn't even aware there was a need for Concom until you brought that up.
Just
If there is a Concom element to this, then you're going to need to pursue that regardless.
right. Now, circling back to the water moratorium, I have water. We're talking about an additional water line because I'm doing a second unit.
So you're gonna have two separate tax bills to the property?
Well, the type of ownership is going to come later when and if it
But
gets
regardless,
condos.
It's gonna be, you own one, I own one.
Right, but when it gets built, it won't be that way. It'll be a two-family house that'll be a whole separate process as to the type of ownership.
How are you gonna maintain the water bill for the two different tenants? That's the problem.
Well, if there's a water moratorium on a second water line.
One line coming in, right? Yeah.
Right. So I have water. So this sounds like a roadblock or an obstacle that may exist, but I don't think it's going to get in my way of doing what I want to do as far as tonight goes, and as far as pulling permits and getting moving, because I could have a two-family house with one water line. That's
That would be a homeowners association,
no. I could have a two-family house that just has one water line. That's how they're.
two separate tax bills, you can't.
No, but it starts off with one tax bill, as it is now. So if a two-family house went up,
I don't think so,
if a two-family house went up today, there would just be one tax bill and there would be one water bill.
but that's not what's happening with this house. When you go to sell it.
After this house is built and there's a certificate of occupancy, or however Dayton phrases that, we would then be taking the appropriate steps as far as quote-unquote condoing and changing the type of ownership and whatever sort of red tape comes along with that, that would never be decided now. We are saying that is our intention to do that, but that's not, that as far as following the steps of a building permit, a two-family gets constructed with one tax bill and one water line and one water bill. So that comes later.
What do you guys want to do?
So again, then in that case, I think that you would just want to include a condition that indicates that they'll comply with a water moratorium. And then that's on the developer to take that risk.
So, if a vote was to be made tonight, and one of the conditions is the 2-year date, how would you recommend wording that condition? Upon the date to be determined by a building inspector?
So I would say that it would be the later of, October 1st or a later date if determined by the building inspector.
October 1st or a later date. Okay, so I just want it to be clear that when you guys do the wording, that's what she's recommending that you use. October 1st or a later date to be determined by the building inspector.
And then that gives,
You guys vote tonight.
that gives me the opportunity to present my whatever evidence I have to the building inspector. I'll need a day to gather that and try to figure it out, and then I'm sure he'll be on the same page, because it'll be pretty simple to figure that out.
So that
Like,
would,
I'm just, my concern, Zach, is that so far, from what I'm calculating based on Marguerite potential, there are 3, possibly 4 conditions that would have to be attached tonight to close this out. And we're getting into the weeds on a lot of these conditions at this point. That's a lot of conditions to attach, frankly.
well, that's up to the voting members. I mean,
I don't disagree with that, but my concern is that my personal opinion is a continuance, at least let the developer knows what they have to do. I understand the developers need to want to be able to get financing and so forth, but they do know what they need to do. We've made that quite clear what they need to do. And I think it's easier and it keeps the whole process flowing rather than have to set all these various conditions, because then if the developer doesn't come back and meet these conditions, we're going to have to decide to continue it again.
So we're talking about the water moratorium as a condition. We're talking about the date of occupancy as a condition. I don't see how, if I'm standing back here in 2 months, that you're still not going to be throwing that in as a condition.
You still have controlled demolition, there's a lot of different
Marguerite,
things
what
on here.
what other conditions did you foresee?
The
I
controlled
envision a
demolition,
condition that relates to compliance with the water moratorium.
Yeah.
that's a big one.
I envision a condition that relates to, no vehicles shall be allowed to construct on a butter's lawn or on the street during construction.
Yep.
I missed that. What was
I
that?
envision a condition that relates to the property, that a building permit shall be obtained,
We can't hear.
matter of October 1st or a subsequent date determined by the building inspector
Yep.
that will, reflect the 2-year, I'll have to figure out how to word this, but the
Right.
2-year lapse date, of the last use of this property as a 2-family dwelling.
Yep.
And then I envision a condition that would include, that a occupancy permit shall be obtained within 12 months of issuance of a building.
So if all 4 of those conditions besides that October date, they're all going to be conditions of a zoning decision at a future hearing.
I see what you're saying. He's like, so some of them
It's not like we're accomplishing anything. They're going to be those conditions still at a future hearing besides that date. The only thing that's going to change is Commissioner Aguilar and I will shore up whatever the date is, which if you just leave the language in there that it's open for interpretation from Mr. Aguilar, we're getting to the finish line, the exact same finish line.
Marguerite, I have a question. So if we put this to bed tonight with all these conditions that we're talking about, and this does not happen by the date of October, we'll call it whatever, 1st, and it's recorded as what we've done, how does that work? Can now we lost the use group? could never build on it.
So
If he knocks the house down, you can't
He still has the right to use the
build.
property for a single-family dwelling.
I
You
can,
could still do a
Hypothetically, that'd be the worst case scenario.
All right.
That's the worst, in his
Okay.
case,
Yeah.
his worst case scenario.
I
yeah,
want to make sure you didn't go lose the use. that's
It
all.
wouldn't be like, well, now I can't do anything, really?
Right,
No,
right,
he
right.
can.
It would
Just
go-
Just not the two-family.
it would go down to a single family. All I'm trying to do is basically that the term that's thrown around so loosely about being grandfathered. I'm just trying to shore up the pre-existing non-conforming of what, a two-family that's there now. It's
Right.
dilapidated, just want a new two-family that's not dilapidated.
Right, right.
But it's new two-family with two owners. It's a little different.
I'm not there yet, though. I'm not
I know you're not there, but I know what that's all about.
But that, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not part of the decision or anything like that.
Or
I'm
is
just,
it us?
Well-
Not part of our decision as we're hearing to talk about the water monitor.
So what-
I guess
so
we're not
Myri,
supposed
what's
to
the-
talk about that.
what-
Not
what-
supposed to talk about the construction control.
well, I'm just saying, it doesn't have anything to do with the special permit that I'm
Okay,
seeking.
okay.
Marguerite, so what would be I got your wording for the parking during construction, as to not, interfere with the butters properties. What exact wording would you recommend for the water?
That he complies with the water moratorium.
Just simply
It's
as that, okay.
possible when you apply to Dayton Water District, they're going to tell you that the water moratorium does not apply to you. I don't know.
They
I
might,
just,
they might, right.
they may tell you that, and now you complied with it because the water moratorium doesn't apply to your property.
So, voting members, the conditions that she recommends are put before you. You have a decision to either A, vote with those conditions, or under advisement. Either way, I think we've kind of, to put this word, exhausted any kind of, well, not the deviation, but we kind of, we know what we want to put in the conditions if you guys vote that way. So that being said, we need to kind of get the ball rolling on this now. I mean, what you guys need to keep in mind, if you're taking under advisement, what that means to you guys versus voting it tonight, approval with those conditions. So you guys need to discuss what you want to do.
Or we don't approve it and we ask them to get all these things that here for the next meeting.
Well, oh, that wouldn't, not, you mean not denying it, you mean continuing?
Continue.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm not,
okay,
I'm not,
okay.
no.
I was making sure that, okay.
Because this is a lot for us to do unordinary,
It's-
and some of the circumstances I understand. I feel bad for the applicant because of the time frame that he's under, and I know as a builder, I'm looking at all the work that's gonna be done, and I still don't even think he'd meet the October 1st date.
And I know you're right, we don't ever put 4 or 5 conditions on something. But as Marguerite said, this is an atypical special
That's
permit
right,
that
and
we're
that
hearing.
this is the
So
one
it's,
where
it's almost like it's okay that
we
have
can
conditions
we
because
can
of some-
control the demo, we can control the
So
water
it's okay to
line,
have
we
4 or
can
5
control.
conditions.
That's the thing that's different, which I was trying to say earlier. You can.
So I know it's a lot of conditions to put on it. It does make it quote unquote messy, but it doesn't make it messy because we know what you want, how we want to word it. So
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we accept the applicant's request for the special permit with the controlled demo vehicles to be, not to go onto the neighbor's property at all.
condition 1.
That would be condition 1. If they go on the property at all, police get called, they would, well, obviously they pull the permit. Make a motion that also, second one would be the water line.
Second condition, right?
Yeah, second condition would be the water line would be resolved
okay.
Before permitting. I mean, it wouldn't be before permitting, he'd need it before he has to have his certificate of occupancy. And then on the last one, October 1st, or a later date to be determined by the building inspector to see that we don't exceed the 2-year lapse date used for a 2-family dwelling.
And was there a 4th condition about the occupancy permit?
Well, the occupancy permit is going to be based on the water line.
Building permit obtained, reflect the 2-year length
Yeah,
of
it
date.
has to reflect it. Yeah, the building inspector will, he's the one who's going to determine the date.
Okay.
I was hesitant at first of doing all that because until Marguerite said, once the building inspector says it, because I know the guy's got to go move forward with his project sooner than later.
We have a motion on the floor with those 3
Sorry, Greg, the occupancy permit, it would need to be obtained within 12 months of the building.
One more.
Yeah, okay. Certificate of occupancy must be maintained and before 12 months of building.
And that's the 4th condition. So we have a motion on the floor to approve with those 5 conditions. Is there a second?
A second.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Any discussion?
With the condition.
With the conditions.
Before I do, point of order, first, I make a motion that we close the public hearing regarding this case.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now going back to the motion that was made to approve, are there any discussions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All set.
So those are your conditions, you know. Good luck.
Thank
I
you.
know you got a lot of
Sorry.
hurdles in front of you.
Get on your horse.
And this is something out of the very ordinary that we don't usually.
Oh, I know.
Thank you for maintaining
Yeah.
composure and patience for that, and for cleaning up the property.
We're
Oh,
trying.
that's a huge thing, actually.
We're
That
trying.
means a lot to the town. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, moving along to review, discuss, and act. Stonegate Landing LLC, westerly side of Somerset Ave, map 9, status update of phase 1. And I understand we have, we have Federoff here on Zoom, members of the public as well, in public, and we also have, a representative from Weston and Sampson online, correct?
And Mr. Fedorov.
Yeah, I did say better, yep. Fantastic, okay, so I will actually turn it over to the, probably Weston and Sampson first, I guess, to give us their, status update.
Yep.
So, the Federoff can comment on it after, but first they're the ones presenting the status update, so whenever they are ready, they may begin.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jim Reardon. I'm from Weston and Sampson. I'm a team leader there and lead most of the peer review work that we're doing for the town of Dayton. I'm here tonight with Steve Spank and James Pearson. James conducted the civil and stormwater part of this review that was included in your packets, and Steve Spank led the pavement evaluation, which we've begun and we're going to go over details on, and then we're planning on delivering a memo regarding that probably later this week. Before I begin, we have a PowerPoint, and I'd like to be able to share that. So if somebody could give me the authority to share, then that would be great.
I will be right there.
While she's setting that up, your work on this was excellent, by the way, thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. We like working with you folks.
Yeah, there you go, Terry, there you go.
You should be able to.
Okay, just a moment here.
Wow, look at that. Haven't done this before.
Nice.
This is impressive.
All right. Good. Can you see the presentation?
We can.
All right, excellent. All right, so I'll start this off a little bit, and then I'll kick it over to members of the team here to help out. So real quick, this is, under the peer review on call that we do with you folks. We were asked to take a look at Stonegate Estates, which we understood was previously constructed subdivision, and that they are coming in for a second phase of construction, that's been held up in part due to economic conditions and in part due to COVID, but that it's moving forward now. So this slide shows the project's site, and you can see in the yellow highlight here the approximate area that we were taking a look at. All right, and Steve, I'm going to kick it over to you to begin the pavement evaluation discussion.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Good evening, everyone. As Jim mentioned, my name is Steve Spink. I'm a geotechnical engineer in our Foxborough office for Weston and Sampson. And the portion of the scope that we worked on specifically was with regards to a review of the existing pavement conditions, which was literally a walk of the two roadways out there. We completed that in March of 2024. And we also completed some subsurface investigations that we'll touch on, and we'll show you what we did there. We did those in April. Based on that data, we reviewed the available construction design plans and basically compared the conditions we saw out in the field with what was originally proposed as part of the design construction. So the primary materials that we reviewed for the pavement evaluation include the original permit plan set prepared in 2004. And then there were some subsequent sets related to sewer construction, one in 2009 and one in 2018. There are some other plan sets that I think Jim and James Pearson will refer to later in the presentation that were geared more towards stormwater. Those were the ones that we were looking at from a pavement evaluation standpoint. So our pavement evaluation in March consisted of 2 engineers from Weston and Sampson going out in the field and walking along Stonegate Landing and Eagle Terrace and observing conditions and documenting areas of defects. These areas were basically areas of pavement distress is what we're looking for in those instances. That includes cracking of various degrees, potholes, surface deformations, settlement, patches, those types of things that we've all seen in pavement areas that we're familiar with. These areas were documented in a photograph log that's included in our memorandum that Jim referenced, along with field notes, and we're going to share some of those typical defects that we saw when we were out there in the next few slides. So this is one example of the items we're looking for as part of this visual assessment. This is an example of fatigue cracking. It's also called alligator cracking just because of the general nature and the way the cracks take shape. So this was one of the common defects that we observed at the site. And we could, as we go forward, we'll talk about some of the potential, causes of this type of cracking. But fatigue cracking was something that was common out at the site. Next slide, please, Jim. This was an area of raveling pavement, so it basically more than likely started as a pothole area, and then the pavement just continued to ravel. Once subgrade conditions are exposed, the pavement just breaks off in pieces. And this was observed at a location adjacent to a patch out along the roadway. This was observed, typical edge cracking along the edge of the roadway. You can see when traffic loading gets too close to the landscaped areas, there's typically not enough subgrade support in those areas, so that cracks develop basically longitudinal parallel to the alignment of the roadway. These were observed along Stonegate Landing as well. And then I think there were several patches out there. This was obviously a gas patch. There was a utility line that came in after the paving was done. So there's some cracking across the roadway where these patches were made. And then in the background there, you could see there's a sewer manhole and probably a water valve. And basically the pavement along these roadways is currently flush with the tops of these utility covers, which will have some significance as we move forward. Next slide, please, Jim. And this was just an example. There were also a few instances that we saw a manhole that was buried with binder course. I think there was one other instance where perhaps a catch basin may have been covered with pavement as well. So these were just some of the typical, when we talk about the pavement defects and the indications of distress, not so much the manhole being covered, but the other ones are indicators of typical pavement, deterioration that needs maintenance and or repairs or replacement. So if we go to the next slide, in addition, this is one more photo of raveling at Eagle Terrace. It was consistent with one of the other photos along Stonegate Landing. So I think after our initial visual assessment, our next step was to evaluate the shallow subsurface conditions along the roadway. And in order to do that, we performed drilling at the site by a local drilling contractor, subcontracted to Weston and Sampson. We drilled 9 borings spread out along Stonegate Landing and Eagle Terrace, utilizing the drill rig that's shown in the photo there to the right. And during this drilling, we collected soil samples continuously from the pavement surface down. And I think the next slide shows we collected pavement. This plan shows approximate locations. We had spaced out 9 borings along the alignment of the 2 roadways. to the best of our ability. They're shown there in red. So at each boring location, what we did, we drilled through the existing pavement so we could measure the thickness of the existing pavement section, and each boring was advanced to a depth of about 6 feet below the existing ground surface. And the purpose of that is so we can evaluate the base thickness that's supposed to be below the pavement section, and then basically the native soils that are in place along the roadway. So those are the standard penetration tests. Those are standard tests we do whenever we do this type of drilling. So those tests were completed every 2 feet at each boring location to evaluate site conditions. And this is just a photo just showing how we would be able to document and measure the existing pavement conditions, and then we were able to obtain samples in each of these borings so that we could submit those to an independent testing laboratory to confirm the soil descriptions and the soil types based on their gradations from a laboratory. When we collect this data, this is all summarized in a boring log. So there's a boring log prepared for each of the 9 boring locations. That'll be included in the memo that will be coming over to the town as well. This is just an example that shows a typical boring log for us and one from the Stonegate Landing project. It just indicates the thickness of pavement and the soil types that were encountered below the pavement surface here. So in terms of our review of the existing design plans, what the existing design plans show is that the roadway section was designed to include a total of 3 inches of asphalt concrete pavement, which it was split into 1.5 inches of surface course and 1.5 inches of binder course. That was to be underlain by 12 inches of base course, and some of these important features are highlighted in red, and then the detail to the right shows where it calls out 12 inches of compacted processed gravel fill base course. The processed gravel fill base course, as we'll show on one of the upcoming slides, that correlates basically to a Mass DOT gradation requirement and specifications from the Mass DOT design code. If you go to the next one, Jim. So at each pavement location, what we did is we compared the existing pavement thickness that's out there with the design plans. And basically, this is just a short table that summarizes at each location what we encountered. And so you can see in a majority of these locations, there was 1 to 2 inches of binder course, and in 2 borings, we had binder course and surface course. So, but the surface course wasn't installed in a bunch of these locations, and I'm sure the developer can speak to that. It's often done in construction. They put the binder course down, come back later and do the surface course. I'm not specifically aware of the time frame on this and why the surface course wasn't put down, but based on what we observed at the site, the majority of the pavement areas just had the binder installed. So the total pavement thickness, which is shown in the column on the right, doesn't necessarily equal or match the minimum pavement thickness shown on the design plans of 3 inches. Because in the majority of the cases, 7 out of the 9, the surface course has not been installed yet. Next slide, please, Jim. What we obtain when we get the soil samples, we send, so the pavement section thickness is one part of this, and then the second part from a design standpoint is looking at the base course thickness, which we saw on the design plans was shown as 12 inches. The samples we collect, we send out representative samples to the independent laboratory testing agency, and we sent 5 samples out for gradation analysis. 4 samples were collected within depths of basically 6 inches to a 2-foot depth, which would be in that range of where that base course would be. Because your pavement thickness, excuse me, is proposed to be 3 inches, underlain by 12 inches of base course. So we tried to pick representative samples from the material that was right below the pavement section. The results are, well, just go back one more time. Thank you, Jim. Sorry, the one thing I do want to point out on this table here, this is from the laboratory testing agency. There's a red box there that just highlights the gradation requirement. So if we just quickly, for instance, if we take B1 sample 1, the first row there, the 42, these are percentages. So it's 42% gravel, 37.7% sand, and then 20.3% fines. And fines is considered silt and clay. And that column is especially relevant because the silt and clay is what basically determines the drainage characteristics of any type of soil, but it's especially important when we're dealing with a pavement type section. So the fines content for the samples that we sent to the lab ranged from 20 to 32%, and excluding the one that's from 2 to 4, the others that were from 6 inches to 2 feet, it's basically about the same, 20 to 28% fines. Next slide, please, Jim. So the relevance of that, when you compare that to the Mass DOT requirements, the number 200 SID is the break between the silt and clay content. So basically, in summary, the silt clay content for Mass DOT should be less than 10%. The samples that we collected exceeded the maximum 10% passing number 200 SID, which means technically this material that we observed below the pavement, didn't meet the gradation requirements for processed gravel for sub-base per Mass DOT requirements. So, in summary, on the next slide, please, Jim, from a geotechnical perspective, our main findings are, one, related to the visual pavement assessment that was completed. And during that assessment, numerous areas of pavement distress were observed. They're documented and identified in our memorandum. But based on the extent of the existing defects or areas of deterioration, we certainly wouldn't recommend that a surface course of pavement be placed directly over that material. And more likely than not, I mean, the contractors don't want to speak for them, but more likely than not, that's not their intention anyway, because that binder course has been down alone for a number of years now, so it's dry. Typically, you put a binder course down, and not too long after you put the surface course down, because you want that material to remain flexible. It needs to have a bond. It needs to adhere to one another. But in any event, we wouldn't recommend that a surface course be placed on top of the existing pavement that's out there due to the extent of the deterioration that we saw. Our second point is that because most of the area just has binder course down at this point, obviously it doesn't match, the total pavement section in many areas doesn't match the thickness on the design plans. It's just an observation, in fact, because only a portion of the pavement section over the majority of the area has been placed. There's about a 500 linear foot section along the northern part of Stonegate Landing where both base and surface course had been placed, but the majority only had the binder course placement. And our third takeaway is regarding the geotechnical laboratory test data, which indicates the fines content of the sub-base material, the base course below the pavement, contained about 20 to 30% fines, which is greater than the typical Mass DOT specification requirements of 10% fines for a base course type of material. And I think Jim's going to jump back in and take over the discussion on the storm drainage.
Thank you very much, Steve. Really appreciate you going through that. I thought that was a great explanation. The next step here is to talk a little bit about the storm drainage infrastructure site visit. And so we took a look at the site from a civil standpoint as well as a stormwater drainage standpoint. This is mostly focused on stormwater drainage, which is what we were primarily asked to do. I would want to mention that we have also, and James Pearson was the person who did this. I mentioned him earlier in our presentation, and we've included him this evening because he can speak to specific questions that the board may have as we go through, as he was actually out at the site. So the stormwater drainage site visit was performed on March 22nd, as noted a moment ago by James Pearson. Also present were the developer and the vice chairman of the ZBA board. It focused on the area along the Stonegate Landing and Eagle Terrace, similar to the pavement evaluation that Steve was just talking about. Weather conditions were clear. It hadn't rained in several days. The last rain had occurred on March 3rd, pardon me, March 7th and March 10th, and as noted before, we did this site visit on March 22nd, so it had been over a week since there had been any rain. Storm drainage infrastructure was observed to review the condition and to ascertain conformance with the approved set of plans. Pardon me. As noted in the peer review memo that was included in your packet, we took a look at a number of materials that were provided by the applicant and the town as part of our initial review before going out to the site. And so, as I mentioned, these items are all listed. I'm not going to go through all of them, of course, but they did include as-built designs and approved permitting designs. We had 5 basic objectives as part of this site assessment. So the first one was to determine whether the storm drain infrastructure on site had been constructed in general conformance with the reference plans. We weren't necessarily looking for, very specific exact conformance. That's really not typically necessary in these kind of reviews, but we did want to make sure that things were substantially the way they have been indicated. Objective 2, we were trying to ascertain the location of installed drainage outfalls and the ultimate discharge points of each of those outfalls. Objective 3 was to review concerns regarding stormwater ponding on the Eagle Terrace cul-de-sac. And as Steve was talking about earlier, you could see the results of some of that ponding. Objective 4, to review concerns regarding ponding at 947 Stonegate Landing. Again, same sort of thing. And objective 5 was to review the condition of the existing stormwater basins. So I'll go through the results of what we found with each of these 5 objectives. So with objective 1, site was walked to confirm the location of the existing catch basins and manholes per the approved plans. So we're basically taking the approved plans and seeing if they match in the field condition. Top line issues observed included the following 3 points. No drain manholes within the paved roadway area were visible. Catch basins were generally present in the locations shown on the plans, with the exceptions of catch basins number 19 and 20. No manholes or superficial evidence was found to indicate the presence of the underground stormwater chambers and grit chambers on the 2004 plan, although it appears they appear to be located on later plans. So we took a look at the 2004 plans. We also took a look at a later version of the plans, and those grit chambers were not in the same location on those 2 sets of plans. So we anticipated that they may have been relocated. That appeared to be the intent. Additionally, there was ambiguity concerning basins 19 and 20, the underground perforated chambers and the grit chamber, pipe chambers and grit chambers. As I mentioned a moment ago, the 2004-2006 plans didn't really match up. The infrastructure within the footprint of the access road and the chambers located to lot 29 catch basins were shifted somewhat. Subsequent plans, the infrastructure within the footprint of the access road created some ambiguity for us as well. And then the 2012 imagery, basins appear to be in their westerly shifted location. It's unclear whether the changes shown in the 2006 plans represent the as-built condition or modifications to the originally approved 2004 plans. And part of the reason why it wasn't clear is because of these subsequent plans. So no surficial evidence of the grit chamber and stormwater chambers at the rear of lot 29 was found. 2006 and subsequent plans noted these chambers were relocated. However, it is unclear whether the chambers were installed in lieu of Basin 3. So there are, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, there are several stormwater basins, not catch basins, but actual stormwater basins on the plan sets. And Basin 3, I think it was Basin 3, was not actually found. Drainage pipe networks are divided in to drain to 3 different outfalls. So there are 3 catchments essentially within this subdivision. They are outfall 1, outfall 2, and outfall 3. Outfall 1, shown on the plans, discharges to a stormwater basin. That's Basin 1. The outfall observed in the field appears to be installed where it was indicated in the plans. So that one, was as indicated. Outfall 2, it wasn't shown on the 2018 plans, but is shown on prior plans. The pipe exiting to the south terminates in a heavily vegetated low-lying wet area, outfall side of the Pilot Rock Drive. And this area appears as though it was intended as Stormwater Basin 2. However, that basin could not be found due to the density of the vegetated overgrowth. And then outfall 3, which was shown on the plans discharging to a 4-bay at Basin 3. And that outfall was found approximately where indicated on the plans. So this is in relationship to objectives 3 and 4, the water ponding concerns. So we took a look at Eagle Terrace cul-de-sac, and our findings were that the ponding likely occurs adjacent to a catch basin because the roadway is paved only with binder, and the catch basin grade was either set at a higher elevation, may have been set at a higher elevation than the binder. So this is relevant to one of the things that Steve was mentioning earlier, where a lot of these stormwater appurtenances, whether they be manholes or grates, appear to be installed flush and grade. In some cases, they are located away from the lowest lying area. So some of the stormwater may not make it there, and therefore ponds in other areas. 947 Stonegate Landing. So this is the back of the yard is lower than the adjacent areas and probably collects water. Another finding, on the side of the house closest to 945 Stonegate Landing, the paved asphalt driveway appeared to have been widened, and the grates associated with this pavement widening may have resulted in the blockage of the stormwater flow. And then the third finding was there was some tree planting and driveway widening that may be responsible for blocking surface runoff, resulting in periods of standing water. So again, this goes back to some of the things that Steve was showing. Just a lot of things that are installed in such a way that, if you're trying to get stormwater to certain grates or appurtenances or whatever, that the stormwater can't make it there due to the fact that it's fighting elevation. Objective 5, so the existing stormwater basin conditions. So Basin 1, which is near Station 150 on the west side of the Stonegate Landing, this is what we found. The south side of the basin has an outlet pipe and an excavated notch in the berm on that side of the basin. Neither are shown on the plan, so there was some alteration to that basin when it was installed from the plans. The basin was heavily vegetated with small trees and other overgrowth. Obviously, the trees can disrupt the installation of structures if they are just sort of left there, and so maintenance is a concern out here. Basin 2, south side of the unimproved section of Pilot Rock Drive near Station 2+50. So stormwater basin was heavily overgrown with vegetation, and presence of features including the sediment forebay burn, spillway, and outlet pipe could not be verified. And then Basin 3 behind Lot 29, 518 Eagle Terrace. So the outfall pipe discharging from stormwater drain network for Eagle Terrace appears to bypass the stormwater basin entirely. So that means that there's a lot of flow that isn't getting treated, and maybe also spilling without any kind of flow control. Plans show a pipe should discharge into a sediment forebay, and then it's supposed to be routed to a basin. Instead, the pipe outfall discharges off-site. The site appears to be graded in the shape of a stormwater basin, but is occupied by a children's play structure belonging to 518 Eagle Terrace. So this is where we were saying it appeared that Basin 3 was never actually installed. It looks like it was intended to be installed because of the gradations, or the grading, I should say. However, it was not installed, and it's occupied by other structures at this point. So recommendations and conclusions related to our stormwater findings. And there are about a dozen of these, so some on this page and some on the next slide. So the first one, the project has a long history of various stages of review and approval. Further evidence should be furnished to evaluate whether the issues described below have been addressed. First issue, manhole covers should be brought up to grade and made accessible. Of course, the thing that Steve mentioned, where the binder course needs to be finished, that means that those structures need to be raised further so they don't get buried. So that's another consideration here. So that could, I suppose, the subsurface or the substrate could be dug down a little bit further and allow for the appropriate thickness of pavement. That's another approach that could be used. Or it may make sense to raise some of the grades of some of these appurtenances. There are missing catch basins that should be installed or exposed if buried. Item 4, the system should be inspected to confirm that the underground grit chambers have been installed. Again, we couldn't verify that with the surface investigation that we did, and we couldn't find evidence of them. It could be that whatever access ports that would have been there that we might have expected to find could be buried under some of the asphalt or in some other way obscured from our view, but we couldn't find them. Item 5, Basin 2 should have maintenance performed to remove the overgrown vegetation. That's for a couple of different reasons. Access, and as I was mentioning before, particularly with woody vegetation like trees, the root systems get in and disrupt the structures, the buried structures and the berms and so on that are part of these stormwater basins, and it either causes them to fail or maybe just not work properly anymore. Item 6, final paving should be performed to address the ponding concerns on Eagle Terrace. Of course, in addition to that final paving, there will need to be amendments made to the binding course. Oops. Item 7, as-built survey should be performed on Basin 1 to confirm it's graded to match the approved plans, and that the pipe leaving the basin was part of the approved plan. So we didn't anticipate that the applicant would do that as part of next phases of this project. Basin 1 should have maintenance performed to remove the overgrown vegetation. Basin 3 should be reconfigured to enable it to function as intended with the appropriate safety fencing. That's particularly important where there are people, particularly children, that are already using this as a play area. You don't want any accidents during a high flow period. People could obviously be seriously hurt or perhaps even killed as a result of something like that. So the fencing would help deter this as, essentially an attractive nuisance. Item 10, provide an updated operation and maintenance plan. That would be so that the existing operation and maintenance plan is upgraded to agree with any reconfigured systems or the systems as they are built currently. Item 11, final correct as-built should be submitted to verify basins are graded properly and installed according to design and of course the permits. And then item 12, in the event the developer is unable to bring the stormwater management systems into conformance with the plans, provide new calculations to ensure that the systems conform to the town's regulation or equivalent performance. I think this is an important one, and there's some nuances here. The existing systems, because we couldn't verify that they match the approved plans or the permits, it was also very difficult, in fact, not possible for us to determine whether they would function hydrologically the way they were intended, or from a treatment perspective the way they were intended. So that information needs to be provided, and any discrepancies need to be addressed. And that concludes our presentation. Steve, did you have anything in addition that you wanted to add?
No, thanks, Jim. I think you covered everything.
And James, if you're available, is there anything else that you would want to add?
No, Jim, I don't think I have anything else to add, but always happy to help answer any questions in case anyone has any.
Thank you.
No, don't worry. So I just want to let the Weston and Sampson know that we do have one representative of the neighborhood who's on. She's been at literally every public meeting that we've had regarding this case, and these residents have been looking for answers and solutions for, I'm going to say, years. And I think in the past year or two, we finally started to find ways to get them access to this, and a lot of them was waiting for the new peer review engineer to be established and have their work done. Personally, I feel like there are so many answers that, I'm not saying solutions yet, but for the resident, at least you have some answers now as to why I think 4 or 5 times looked over at Greg and said, that makes sense now, or like, that explains a lot now. So obviously the work now needs to be done to get these accomplished, but at least now, like, why is there water runoff and why are the road cracks? I know a lot of that was dense, but at least hopefully there's at least some answers for you, at least as to why the conditions are the way that they are. Before I turn it over to Feroff and Marguerite, do any board members have any overall comments to make before we get into the nitty-gritty on anything?
Greg? I have 2 quick questions if I could just ask, and then I'll get them. I won't have any more after that.
Go ahead, John.
The first question is, when you talked about the surfacing under the road and the composite of it, and you referred to it as the DOT standard, was that standard, has that standard changed since they first put down that lower level surfacing, and is that based on today's standard or a then standard? That's my first question.
Good question.
Let me tell you my second question so that you can answer both. The second question would be with regard to the areas for the retention, for the water retention that you referred to. Are those, or should those have been inspected or cleaned on an annual or biannual basis? Is there an engineering requirement that says how often the root systems are supposed to be cleaned, or is it supposed to be subject to an engineering review every year? And if yes, on either of those, did you see any reports indicating that any of that had been done since 2004?
Two very good questions that I also had too. So if the applicant, I'm sorry, if any of your representatives want to speak on that.
I don't know who wants to answer them from the engineering company. Thank you.
Jim, I could take a stab at the first one if you'd like.
Please.
So, just with regards to the Mass DOT standards, what we referenced was the processed gravel, which was identified on the design plans. The gradation requirements haven't changed in terms of the key parameters that we're looking at, which is the minus 200 SID. Those have been around, I don't know, they have not changed in a long time. I mean, I've been doing this 23 years. That they certainly have not changed within that window. That I don't know the exact date when the DOT specifications came to be, but they have not changed.
So it wasn't a recent change that happened since they started, obviously.
No.
Okay.
All right, and then James, I think you'd probably be the best person to answer to the O&M standards and what O&M they were required to follow, I guess, based on their permit approval.
Yeah, absolutely. So predominantly the most noticeable stormwater features on this site are the stormwater basins, and typically those are supposed to have some inspection done. And then the maintenance is supposed to be done on sort of an as-needed basis. So in other words, if you do an inspection and there's no maintenance that looks like needs to happen, then obviously you don't need to do maintenance. Inspections usually you'd want to do at least twice a year. A lot of times with the changing of the seasons, particularly with fall, you can get some things trapped in the basins, leaves and whatnot. And then in the springtime after the winter, all sorts of things can happen over the winter, so you want to make sure things are operational come spring. So those are typically the inspection periods, and then the sorts of maintenance activities that you typically want to see. First and foremost, you don't want trees and large vegetation growing up in these basins. That stuff is supposed to be cleared out consistently. And if you have things like accumulations of sediment, you'd want to remove any sediment buildup if there's any, and then the other thing is obviously inspecting to make sure that there's no erosion happening or any degradation of the basin itself, making sure that it's maintaining its integrity. So I hope that answers the question.
Did you have a chance to review, or were you given any, or did you ask for any reports to show that the inspections were done, and did you see any degradation?
I was not given any reports. Those weren't provided in any materials I reviewed. I hadn't really requested any either. When I was on site, I think the biggest thing that I noticed with the basins is that there's a lot of heavy vegetation in them, trees and everything growing on them that have obviously been there a while. So there's been quite a period of time that has elapsed where none of that's been dealt with. I didn't really notice any erosion. I would say that one of the basins in particular was a little bit difficult to inspect just because the vegetation was so heavy. It was kind of hard to see all the features of everything. So, I would say if that vegetation was cleared out, it might be easier to look at it again and just kind of see if you uncover anything, I guess.
So then let me just ask you for that follow-up. If the root systems and the underlying things that you saw there are clear in those areas, could that affect the degradation, especially if some of those root systems have been growing for years and years and so forth? If they're actually dug out and removed instead of just cut back, could that potentially affect the integrity?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to cut down trees and then you start, pulling stumps out of there with roots and everything, then you'd have to make sure that you kind of stabilize those areas where you take those things out.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Before I turn it over to Greg, just a quick question. Carrie, are these slides made available to us yet? Did you have have they been attached to the file for tonight's meeting? Is there a way that we could possibly have that? Just because, I mean, the memorandum is great, but in case more members of the public, if the residents who live there want to see more details, is there any way that we can add this to our packet for tonight?
We'd be happy to provide them, from Weston and Sampson's standpoint. I can get them to the town tomorrow.
Yeah, it could be in a PDF format of the slides. It didn't have to be the exact presentation, but just I'm not looking for the actual reports, more just the information that you have on these slides for the public to see. Okay, great. All right, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, James, I got a couple questions. So as you were stating that you were looking at plans due to the plan, the original plan came out in 2004, the comprehensive permit plan. Was that a complete set?
So initially I didn't have all the sheets, but during the review process, I did manage to contact Richard, who was able to get me additional sheets. So I feel like what I reviewed was everything that I needed to review. I think maybe there were some landscape plans that were also supposed to be part of it, but I didn't really consider those necessarily to be relevant to the things I was reviewing.
So the drawing, the plan dated 2006, the preliminary as-built, what had changed on the as-built from the comprehensive plan on the 2006?
So the as-built plan, as I recall, I think it showed a shifted location of some underground chambers that had previously been shown in the emergency access road, and it looked like maybe they shifted those over to the location of where that stormwater basin was behind the lots.
Right, that's the one on the west?
Yeah, one of the lots at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah. And then I knew we had the phase 1 lower pressure sewer design. When that got sent to you, that was what, 2014? That was the drawing you were looking at?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, I do remember there was a plan showing where there was a low pressure sewer added.
August 25th, 2014.
And then
just to clarify, there were two versions, I believe. The sewer construction plans for Stonegate Landing, which was August 20, 2009, and then there was the set that you folks were just talking about from August 25, 2014.
Right. Okay.
So the infrastructure was put in based on the 2004 comprehensive permit plan, I would take, and then something had changed because there was a talk at one time of possibly not doing the sewer pump station for phase 2. So that had to have been put in after the fact. Am I correct on that? So if it was already started in 2004, then we got in with the phase 1 low pressure design, that had to been put in after the fact. Well, I didn't see.
Yeah, I mean, they had.
I didn't see any of that up there.
Planned.
You know, usually you see like the trenching in the road of the binder coat, and I didn't notice that up there. That's why I was questioning, because as you were doing your talk in there, I heard like a bunch of different dates, and I'm like, I just was kind of confused because there should have been a lot more trenching for the low-pressure sewer. That would have went through the yard for the most part, but maybe they put the infrastructure in with that and then tied in later. No, those are the few questions I had. It was just, there was a ton of different dates and stuff that I'm looking at, and I'm like, I was getting confused. Which one is actually the boss? The comprehensive permit is the one that should be, the one we did in 2004 for the design of the layout up there, and then there was a 2014, 2018. So those are all RFI'd?
Sorry, was that a question?
No, I'm just asking, was those all RFI'd, so they're all showing dates and stamps for that project? Because I just don't understand why we have 6 or 7 different plans.
He's not questioning you guys. He's more
No,
questioning.
not at all.
He's more
I'm just trying to figure out why we have so many plans.
So many different plans with different dates on them.
And I don't know which one is the one we're supposed to be working with.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that what's out there in the ground right now doesn't necessarily match the 2004 plan.
Right. Okay.
Because there were subsequent things that changed along the way. Apparently, like where the sewer pump station is right now today, was not part of the original 2004
Right.
plan.
So they were trying to find what
Fair.
did match.
Okay.
What they were
Yeah,
trying-
and
right.
yeah, and based on that preliminary as-built, for instance, too, supposedly, and again, we couldn't verify this in the field, but supposedly these underground chambers that they were originally going to put under the emergency access drive, supposedly those were shifted over to this other area behind this lot at the end of the cul-de-sac, and again, we weren't able to see it out there. And the other thing that was really ambiguous too, though, is that on those as-built plans, they still showed a stormwater basin in that location where they're also putting the chambers. And so it was a little ambiguous as to what the intent was, whether they were trying to do away with that basin and have the chambers instead, or whether they're trying to have them both there at the same time, occupying the same footprint. So it just made it a little bit hard to decipher what the intent was exactly.
Yeah, because I was just looking at all the dates that you had to work through, and I'm like, I don't even know how we could determine, but it does make sense, as you say. 2004, they updated in 2006, and that started showing the westerly side of that storm basin and things of that nature. I did witness that backyard with the swing set, and nothing hooked out back there on that piece there.
I didn't walk it, but I saw those pictures.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was pretty interesting. No, this is a good report. As you were
good
speaking and
isn't
going
understatement.
through, and I'm going through, and I'm like, all right, on drawings of 2006, I'm like, oh man, how many drawings do we have? So that's where I think some of the confusion might have came into play. And I'm not sure when Mr. Fedorov bought this project, if the infrastructure was already in.
I think some of it was, right?
Because he bought this from someone
I
else
know.
prior.
I know. And I don't remember either.
Yeah,
I think some of it was in some phases, but
No, it's just stuff that interesting. I'm very thorough, all the dates and stuff and how many pages. And
I'll turn it over to Marguerite and then Fedorov after Dave and Elise. Do you have any comments? No? Okay, so before I turn to Fedorov, I'll go to Marguerite first. Do you have any immediate comments or questions? I know we've been waiting on this for a while and we finally got, more than enough information. I'm not sure what you able to review.
I truly appreciate it. I'm just going to give a couple of quick comments, and a quick request is that could you provide me with the PowerPoint separately, please?
Okay.
And then my other comments are just that there is a stormwater operation and maintenance plan that is attached as Exhibit A to the Homeowners Association documents. The recording information for that Homeowners Association document is book 16421, starting at page 189. It was recorded on December 12, 2006. It appears to be 8 pages in length, and that Exhibit A is the last page of it. I do have a copy of it that I can share with you as well. Once you send me that PowerPoint, I'll just reply and provide you with a copy of that. And that might just be helpful for you to know what should have been done and what has been agreed to be done. It is required under one of the conditions of the comprehensive permits. I think it's condition 53, that the maintenance of the stormwater system has to be undertaken by the developer until such time that the roadway is accepted by the town, which obviously hasn't happened, or 2 years after final build out, which still also hasn't happened. So it's not an obligation of the homeowners association until one of those dates arises under condition 53 of the comprehensive permit. And then the last thing I'll mention is that at one point in time, there was bonding for the infrastructure. When it was originally constructed, I think it was constructed initially prior to any of the initial houses going in. I don't believe Mr. Fedorov was involved in the project at that time, but I defer to him on that. And the town reviewing engineer at that time was JNEI. Sandra Brock was their project engineer on that. I don't know if they have any files that it might be worthwhile for Weston and Sampson to reach out to them to see if they have any files or information. If you are going to undertake further historical review of information, that might be a resource that you could use. I've tried to look at my records. I may have some paper copies and files that are buried, and it will take me some time to go through. I have multiple files that cover 20 plus years of time on this project, so it will take me some time to look at them. Unfortunately, I don't have electronic copies of what they submitted back then.
Okay.
And that's all I have for right now.
Mr. Fedorov, if you have any comments to make, you may go ahead and do so. He's muted. I don't know if you have to unmute him or.
Yep.
If he's still there, give him a couple more seconds.
Zach, it said, when they began their presentation, it said that Mr. Fedorov had left the meeting, so I don't know if it's showing you that he's still there.
It is. It is showing his name there with the mute
Yeah.
icon on. So on our end, it looks like he is there but muted. So
Yeah, on my end, it did say when they started the presentation, Richard Fedorov, specifically, Richard Fedorov had left the meeting. So
okay, it must not have a refresh on our end. But whenever he's on Zoom, he's usually very good about being able to. Oh, okay. So we'll Carrie just unmuted him. So now let's see if he is there. Mr. Fedorov, are you there? Okay, no. So it sounds like he's not actually there.
Right.
Like I said, in the chat. Oh.
it is showing me here disconnect.
Okay, so he for some reason on our end, like I said, it still shows he's not there. I mean, it shows that he is there, but I guess he's not. Like I said, he's usually when he's on Zoom, he's usually very good about coming on when he needs to be. So I'm assuming he would have if he was there. That being said, am I assuming he's been? How much contact has he had with Weston and Sampson since this has been completed? This report. Have you guys? Has he? Do you know? Are you at least know that he's been sent this, or how much discussion has been had?
So we provided the report to the town. That is the stormwater drainage one that was done back in March.
Yep.
We haven't completed the report on the pavement evaluation yet, but we're expecting to have that soon. And so we expect to provide that to the town probably later this week.
Oh, I guess I meant more than the materials that we have before us tonight. Has he seen these yet? Do you know, or at least has he been sent them?
Do you mean the PowerPoint?
Yeah, or the memorandum, anything? He's not. Oh, okay.
Well, so the memorandum, I couldn't tell you for certain. Maybe Carrie could answer that question, but I would expect he has. Okay.
So he's been sent it. Whether he's looked at it or not, we don't know. But he has at least been sent it.
Correct. So
Okay.
Mr. Fedorov received it probably within 24 hours after I received it from
Oh, okay. So at least he got it. Whether he looked at it or so we're not saying he hasn't looked at it. We just know that he's at least been sent it.
Correct.
Okay.
I also spoke to him on the phone today to confirm that he was going to be here, at least by Zoom.
Okay.
He said he told me he read the report and
Okay.
he's going to do what he needs to do.
That's what he said. Okay. I mean, I guess he didn't necessarily need to be here to hear all this. It was more for us that we got this information and the residents that we need to hear this. So it wasn't so much his status update because he was just getting the information too.
Correct.
It was, I guess now I'm thinking about it, it wasn't like I was waiting for him to say, yes, we did X, Y, and Z. He wouldn't necessarily have done anything yet, but at least we know he's been sent it, and according to you, what he said to you, he's at least read it. So
He did acknowledge that he's received it.
okay, all right, that's at least we know that much if he's not here to speak for it. That being said, are there any? I notice we have one here, and then I will go to anybody on Zoom who's here. So if you want to speak, you may certainly come on up. Again, name the deal, name and address to the record.
Hi, I'm Lisa Paquette. I live at 947 Stonegate Landing.
Yep.
And I noticed there were no recommendations about what you found at 947 Stonegate Landing, so I wondered if there are any recommendations and whose responsibility that is going to be.
So I'm gonna go back to that section of the PowerPoint. James, are you still there by any chance?
There was one more thing too.
Yes, I'm here.
There are photos on record of this problem predating the driveway and the trees. I sent the photos to Carrie from 2011 of ponding.
So before any of that.
Before the
right.
driveway was widened and before the trees were planted.
Oh, I see what you're saying, because according to their report, they said that those things may have led to that, but you're saying your pictures are from before that work even happened.
Right.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, because their report, what it says in there, are situations that could cause.
Could, right, to be
Yeah,
fair,
yeah,
right. They
yeah.
didn't say
Didn't
could.
say
They
that.
didn't say, no,
Upon
that is the
review
reason,
of the
but they
yard,
said it could
generally
be.
appear that rearward portions of the yard on the areas abutting 945 Stony.
And in their defense, they might not have known
No,
that
not
it was
only
before
that,
that.
not only that, there was some trees that they recommended we should remove, and I believe I mentioned that to you too. We could go over that. And there was some other things in here too that are corroborating with it. And it's also, there's a swale between the two properties, and that's where these trees are. And she had some photos showing where it was all wet.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
So.
There was something about water coming from the condos behind me, too.
Yeah, so, again, we have the orchards, okay, which is next to it.
Right, which is what butts her property,
Yeah,
yeah.
and on the back side of the property, there is a high swale, and it comes down the hill, and her property's at the bottom. There is really no swale, so whatever comes down that hill from the orchards pools in the
Right.
back. So it is low. Her property does dip down in that back. It's
Yeah, but-
not running away,
Right.
so it has nowhere to go, so you got standing water.
Right. But no, I think James, he's been unmuted now, so if he wants to comment on, and Jim too as well. Oh, wait, you're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we visited, when I visited the site, you know, the only information that I had the benefit of was just whatever I could see with my own eyes as I stood out there, and then subsequent to the visit, you know, having gone back to the office and, you know, trying to pull up some old, you know, historical imagery of the site, you know, which, you know, obviously I could see that, you know, there'd been some driveway widening, and you could kind of see that when you were standing out there too. You could see that this driveway at one time had been widened, you know, and that the trees had been added and things of that nature. And so, you know, again,
Would it be
these are things that we, sorry?
would it be helpful for you guys to be sent the pictures that she has predating that driveway widening, just so you guys can at least see them?
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, and if there's going to be any further review on this, then that would be good information that we could take into consideration. You know, that being the case, you know, if this issue predates that, then, you know, it seems that it's a matter of that area of the yard obviously is just topographically lower than the areas around it, and there's just no place for the water to go. So, you know, it's a little hard to just say off the cuff right now.
Right,
what would need to be done about that.
So I guess with that more information, would you guys at some point be able to give more specific recommendations to appease that issue?
Well, perhaps, yeah. I mean, we would just need to have some time to take into consideration.
Okay, so we'll find a way for them to be sent the pictures that she sent you, with hopefully a date on them, so at least they have more of a point as to like where to start. Because like, again, they only had what they were given, and if they only had the visual, I can understand why. In their conclusion, that's what they thought, without realizing that it obviously started before that. So I think, like I said, that might be helpful for her to get some answers if they have more details as to where that started from. So if we'll find a way to make sure that they get those pictures.
Okay.
And if you, it's okay with me if she wants to send them any more comments through you even. She can certainly do that. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public on Zoom that have any comments? I don't think that there are. I don't see the arrow anymore showing that there are more people on, so I think we're good. So we just Carrie, Marguerite, Jim, Steve, James, and Richard, who's not there. So, and then obviously, I don't see John anymore, but. All right. So we had nothing to necessarily act on today with this, but I guess what do you guys need from us at this point? Do you guys need anything else from us before we continue? That's just John digging to come back in. Do you guys need anything more from us aside from what I just mentioned with the pictures of that resident? But do you guys need anything else from us?
This is a question for us at Weston and Sampson?
Correct, yes.
Yep. You know, you folks had asked us to provide the PDF of the PowerPoint. We'll certainly do that.
Yeah.
Any further information you want us to review and probably go over the scope of what it is that you want us to do that's in addition to what we've already put together. And you know, that might not be a thing that we can do right this moment.
Oh, that's fine.
I think we need to, yeah, I think we need to do the information first, but we're happy to help out with that, of course.
And I did see, yep, I know Marguerite has also mentioned a couple things that she can provide you guys. I did just see that Mr. Fedorov, I think, just dinged back in. So I'll give him the opportunity now if he has any. I know he has seen and possibly read this information. So Mr. Fedorov, if you have any comments to make, you certainly can.
Zach, Mr. Fedorov just contacted me by telephone to tell me that he has heard the entire presentation. He has not been able to respond. I suggested he try to log in again, to log out, log in, see if that will work. If not, what he asked me to simply pass on was that from his perspective, he finds the report extremely thorough. He accepts the full validity of the report from his perspective, and that he is wanting to work with this team to get everything put together, and he wants to start with the basins, et cetera, et cetera. But that he hopefully will be able to respond at the next meeting because he's not able to do anything to have us hear what he's saying.
And that's fine. At least we know that he's at least seen the presentation at least, which is kind of the biggest part for me. So, all right. Thank you, Weston and Cindy, for everything. I think Jim, I think you were there for the interview. I think Carrie and Greg were also there. And you, yes.
Could I just, since we have Weston and Sampson here, maybe it would be helpful if we tried to explain to them sort of the concept of what the board was looking for before they got involved, because you weren't present for some of the original meetings that led to getting to this point. So, so the developer, so the town is used to working with its town engineer on sort of a peer review basis, and typically that's funded through its 53G account that's paid for by the developer. This particular project came back because there had been a bonding element when the infrastructure was put in. It was not envisioned that it would take this long for the next set of phasing and next development of the infrastructure to happen. And so the bonding didn't sort of maintain and stay in play, unfortunately. And so there hadn't been really anything to hold the developer accountable for ongoing work and repairs. And so that was brought to the zoning board's attention by the homeowners. There was also at that time a modification request that was before the zoning board that has since been withdrawn. But Mr. Fedorov agreed to stay involved with working with the town with the hopes that he's trying to bring this project up to a point where it's able to move forward in one way or the other. Whether he's involved or not will be determined in the future, but he needs to be involved at this stage, at least to complete the phase A. He has indicated that rather than using his own engineers, he doesn't want to have to pay for his own engineers and pay for the town to then peer review his own engineers' work. He would rather work directly with the town's engineers. So I know that you put together a scope of work proposal for us to answer some initial questions, and you're probably coming to an end of that proposal. But there's going to be a need for you to monitor and work with Mr. Fedorov to actually complete the repairs and the additional services and work that you're recommending. And that, if that needs a further proposal, or if you want to do that on a revolving 53G account basis where you're submitting monthly invoices for the work and you just sort of give him a proposal that shows what your hourly rate is, your various engineers to work with him, there needs to be somebody that is monitoring his compliance with your recommendations and who is working with him in a collaborative way, in a communicative way, to see what his plans are, to watch what his plans are, to observe his plans, and then to follow up and review whatever work he's done to ensure that it is compliant with your recommendations. So I think that's where the board is envisioning this relationship to move towards. And it sounds to me, based on what Jonathan just said, that Mr. Fedorov remains on board with that plan. But again, from your standpoint, whatever, paperwork or agreements or et cetera that you need to prepare to make this next step take place, the town would want you to do that. We don't want to have to wait further for that to happen. So that can happen simultaneous to you completing whatever work you're doing under the scope of work. And that's why I think as you're hearing people say, oh, I have more information for you to review, as I'm saying to you, I have more information that I'm happy to share with you, and you're welcome to reach out to me if you need something specific or have a historical question. That's kind of where those conversations are coming from, I think. And I think that's why it may be a little confusing for you as you sit here tonight, and I'm hoping that I'm providing you with a little bit of clarity of what the expectation is going forward from the town standpoint. The town has no objection to Mr. Fedorov's proposal that instead of hiring his own engineers to monitor and do this work, that he essentially works with the town's peer reviewing engineer, understanding that you're employed by the town. You're not employed by Mr. Fedorov. So you're going to essentially be reviewing him to ensure compliance with whatever the town is requiring to have happen, not necessarily what he wants to try to do. And so we don't have a problem with that because we would have had you peer review any of that work anyways that he was doing or that he was working with his engineers to complete. Does that help?
It does. I guess from our perspective, I think we'd want to talk that over a little bit internally. We may have some questions about it because I'm sure you understand the typical relationship is that we get engineering plans and then we review them and provide a peer review back to you. And this is a little bit of us potentially actually doing the work and then sort of saying whether it's in compliance or not. And we're happy to help however we can, but obviously that on the face of it could present a certain amount of conflict. Not that we wouldn't do what the town wanted, of course, but just that, we need to make sure that we're doing what the town wants, as well as making sure that the engineering is properly QA/QC'd and TRC'd and all that sort of good stuff.
Correct. And the town's not looking for you to cross any sort of conflict issues. If there are significant conflict issues with this arrangement that you're, not able to find a way around, then certainly let us know, and we'll have to let Mr. Fedorov know that he'll have to hire a separate engineer. I mean, that's never been the intention of the town, but this project has just been sitting there for so long, and at this stage, it seems like Mr. Fedorov is willing to undertake the work, but he needed to know what that work was, which made sense. And now we just want to start doing that while we still have his willingness and agreement to do so. So the town is very vested in trying to get this resolved. They, understand the concerns of the homeowners. Some of them are things that they can take care of. Some of them they are not necessarily, but to the extent that they can be involved in taking care of some of the homeowners' concerns, they're looking to try to do so. And obviously you will be involved one way or the other, but if there's a way that you can be involved to make this move forward and not pause, that is what the town will be looking for. I am happy to speak with you separately. You're certainly welcome to give me a call, and we can discuss this more after you've had your internal conversations.
That sounds good. Yeah, so I can get your contact information, I'm imagining, through the town, and then we'll just proceed that way.
Yes, and I think you have my email address because I think you've sent me stuff before, but
yeah,
it should be on there. Mm-hmm.
And just
I think it's probably in one of these chains of email threads that we have.
And just for the record, because Greg is the point person for this project, I obviously, as the chairman, allow him to have any discussions he needs to have with Marguerite regarding this project without my prior approval. So, if he needs to typically when a board member wants to reach out to the council, they need to go through the chair first, considering that relationship. But obviously, Greg obviously can do what he needs to do to make sure that relationship is secured the way the town and Marguerite see fit. All right.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. We look forward to next steps on this, and we appreciate the opportunity to help you folks out this evening.
All this information was definitely worth the wait, I'll say that.
So will the board be putting this on its agenda for the August meeting then, maybe for us?
We will, yes. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess.
I plan to attend that meeting, and then I think perhaps Carrie can let Weston and Sampson know if it might be helpful for them to, based on whatever work you've done.
Yeah, definitely, yep.
And that was that August 23rd? I'm sorry, I'm not.
27th?
27th.
Okay. I just want to get that on.
Right, it was July 23rd and then August 27th for the next 2 meetings, yep.
Okay.
But as of right now, I don't see need for them to be there for the July meeting.
Weston?
Yeah, so they only need to worry about the August date.
Okay, so we'll add in the August date, and
Yes.
we, at this point, we won't plan to attend on July 23rd.
Correct, yes, please.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you again, too, and I hope you all have a great night.
You too. I know we do have to go into executive session. However, we have 2 very quick clerical things to address first. Shouldn't take very long. So 4.2, end of year transfer for a clerical union. Carrie and I already discussed this briefly before the meeting, but Carrie, if you just want to catch the board members up.
Alright, so this is a request from the town accountant. When the clerical union ratified their contract, they're now making it whole. They had set aside $20,000 so that they could fund, some additional salary increases.
Yep.
So in order to do that, they need to transfer, monies from what they set aside into our payroll account so that we can, make the clerical unions whole.
Is there, does the board need to have a vote on this, or is it more just?
You have to do official
we do
vote,
need
just
official vote.
approving the clerical union transfer for the zoning board in the amount of $395.
I'll make the motion that we approve the clerical union transfer to the zoning board payroll of $395.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? No. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call, sorry.
Roll call. Aye, Zachary Karen.
Aye, Greg Logan.
Aye, David Phillips.
Aye, Elise Vincent.
Hi, Gail.
Thank you.
Moving on quickly to the last clerical item we have. 4.3, which is surplus equipment disposal. Is that HON? On?
Yes, HON.
HON Han 2-drawer file cabinets. We have a memo to us from Carrie dated June 24th regarding the surplus equipment for disposal. The following item is considered surplus equipment and to be considered for disposal. The one on Han 2-drawer file cabinet. I'll make the motion that we approve the surplus equipment to be disposed, that being the one Han 2-drawer file cabinet.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye, Zachary Karen.
Aye, Greg Logan.
Aye, David Phillips.
Aye, Elise Vincent.
Hi, Jonathan.
Before I make the motion to go into executive session, which we do have to do next. Oh, sorry. Approval of meeting minutes, April 23rd. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Can I have a motion? Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 23rd, 2024?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes from April 23rd, 2024.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All's in favor?
Aye, Greg Logan.
Aye, Zachary Karen.
Aye, David Phillips.
Aye, Elise Vincent.
Hi, Gail.
Before we go into executive session, I'm just going to announce that we will adjourn after the executive session. We're not going to come back after executive session. So that being said, I'll make the motion that we go into executive session, quote unquote, under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21A13, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation, or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. I, Strawberry Fields versus Town of Dayton. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye, Greg Logan.
I, Zachary Karen.
Aye, David Phillips.
Aye, Elise Vincent.
Hi, Jonathan Gale, and I just need to know if I need to log out and log back in, or if Carrie is able to cut everybody off and keep me on.
I can cut everyone off and keep you on.
Thank you.
All right, we are officially in executive